Hello and welcome to episode 198 of the Imperial Truth Podcast. I'm Greg. Joining me, as usual, it's Mr. Howard. Hello, Howard.
Hello, Greg. How are you doing? All
How you
right?
doing? I'm good. We're actually on a video call for once, and Howard did actually wave at you, dear listener.
Standard.
He did wave. He's so polite.
I've got to,
So
I've got to bring the whole package to this thing.
that's good. It's good. Yes, excellent stuff. Before we go anywhere, Element Games for all your plastic toys of desire, of need. Your new book for Legions Imperialis, which I've
Yes.
yet to order actually. Must do that. And your paints, your glues, your whatever you want, frankly.
Came to my rescue this week after I got very frustrated at about 1 a.m. Doing a bit of airbrushing with the wonderful Harder and Steenbeck Evolution airbrush, which I picked up from them a long while ago, and ish. The nozzle got stuck, and that was really annoying. That I'd left it and I got it gummed up using some Tamiya clears, and I couldn't get it. And I did everything I possibly could to try and get the thing removed, including getting some pretty nasty blisters on my finger. And eventually, I had to use a pair of pliers and arced the air cap on the front of my airbrush. Walked into the London store the next day, bought a new one. Job's a good one. Don't know of any other hobby stores that would allow you to do that, or that would give that option.
Not many. No,
So that was a delight.
That's cool. I was talking to Neil Hollis very briefly the other day, who had 2 successful paint sessions.
Oh yes,
teaching sessions at Element in London, which is super cool. He's talking about doing a third as well, and got the name of the manager, and I believe it is the guy I used to play 40k with a lot and Blood Bowl with a lot. So I might have to pop in there at some point and say hello.
I think I crossed paths with him on one occasion when I was in there. He was speaking like a manager would, and seemed like a super nice guy.
Yeah, so that's cool. That's all good. Yeah, I will make a visit up there at some point. I've got to go up to the hospital at some point up in London Village, so I will head up and have a little look around. A couple of places actually. I've never been to Bad Moon either, so
Oh wow!
maybe I'll pop up there and
So
across
you'll come up.
and down.
We have a game, and we do a little hobby tour
Can do.
of Central London.
Yeah, and then I get to the hospital in time for my appointment, which will probably be
Sack
cool.
that off.
We'll see you in 5 months. Thanks. Who knows? Who knows? Anyway, yeah, brilliant. So Element Games, whether you're in London, Birmingham, Sheffield, Newcastle,
I was going to say
Nottingham,
new one's in Newcastle, isn't it?
Newcastle, yeah. Yeah, it's almost set up. I follow Leafy Days on Instagram. I think she's manager. I think she might be manager up there. But they had photos of saying certainly works there. So photos of setting up, getting all ready for that, which is cool. And of course, OG store over in near Manchester and Stockport, and the game centre, and online as well. And we have a link for them, and wonderful stuff. Brilliant stuff. Anything else before we move on? I think we're good. Right. So, have you been up to any hobby? You've been a busy boy.
I have, actually. I have been doing some things where I could do it between sort of holiday things. I have basically finished off a unit of 10 Iron Warriors Dominators, which I had put together and been converting and getting parts for. I'd been printing things like Thunder Hammers to add to a set of Cataphracti and stuff. Yeah, I've got those done. Well, ish. I've got a bit more I'd like to do to those, but they are looking like a big unit of 10 of them now. And I have getting very close now to finishing, he says, in inverted commas, an Alpha Legion force for Legions Imperialis. And alongside that, I'm trying to get some terrain done. I've embarked on a new project for that. I'm trying to keep it running in the background, although it's stalled a bit at the moment, which is we're trying to find a set of terrain that you could do as destructible. So that had an intact building, damaged building, and a destroyed building. But would have settled for one or the other.
Terrain do
Kind
that,
of,
not quite.
And they do, but the thing is with Grimdark, well, there's 2 parts to that. Grimdark tends to favour resin printing,
Right.
which is good for detail by far. I mean, it looks incredible, but it is quite involved. It's fantastic for miniatures.
Yeah.
Terrain, particularly if you wanted to go slightly larger pieces, you're into either printing a lot, depending on what size of printer you've got, but still, and there's a whole process to that.
Yes.
You're printing it, it's messy, it's clean up, it's a lot to it for that. Um, Whereas the other type of printing, FDM printing, filament printing, not so much. That you can just go print and
Sure.
you get it after you get these models that you can just take straight off the bed, ready to go. So, and there are other designers that do that, and there was there was a few who did epic scale terrain, Titanicus type stuff. So, found this new, very detailed designer who is working on some ruined terrain as well. But regardless, I found one that's got this enormous catalogue of intact buildings, destroyed buildings, and destroyed in kind of what looked like, sci-fi super weapons, which is quite fun,
Yes.
and then destroyed buildings, which for legions in particular, more so I'd say than Titanicus, although that's got its appeal with its destroyable terrain. I just love the idea of that level of interactivity, which with Legions Imperialis is even more important when you've got infantry garrisoning buildings and then you're lobbing siege shells into them and bringing them down. It's a perfectly logical way to play that game. So that's what I'm trying to get to happen. I've printed about 10 buildings, I think, so far in their 3 states, so intact, damaged, and destroyed. I'm trying to build up a table of that. So that's going in between painting models as well, and it's all being done usually between the hours of about 10 o'clock at night and 1 a.m. when I should be in bed,
Sure.
which
Yeah.
is
Tell me.
delightful for the day to day when you're at work and you're like, sorry, I can't quite see what's happening. um,
I've been struggling the last week or
yeah,
so, yeah, with a few like, oh, work want me to do a run up to Croydon. Okay, yeah, I can do that. Oh, I had a late night the night before. Oh, club run late. Okay, I
yeah,
haven't got 6 hours sleep a night yet. Okay, I'm too old for this.
yeah, quite.
But
Getting the occasional infant wake up at 5 a.m., 5:30 when you've had a slightly later than you should have done, like
oh
when your
yes, it's
airbrush gets
always.
jammed, for example. Um, yeah, and
They
you get it.
seem to know, don't they?
Yeah,
They seem to know.
yeah.
And then that day you need to get up to get out to work early,
Oh
and
yeah.
you're like, the alarm has gone off, and he hasn't woken up. He normally wakes up before the alarm. Anyway, yeah, standard. It's all part of the
Oh
fun.
yeah. So
That's cool.
quite a bit of hobby over a range of different things there, one way or another. What about yourself?
Not a huge amount. I say this week I haven't been able to sit down once yet because of one thing or another. So I've got my legions on the table, the new stuff, 4
Hmm.
typhons, 2 mastodons, which are going to get done at some point. Except we're going away for a weekend, but we're not even going away for a weekend. We're going 7 miles down the road to stay in a cottage that my mum used to live in, or Emma's mum used to live in, or something, or Emma did, I don't know. And they've very nice gift of a weekend away, 7 miles away from my own bed, and my own TV, and my own hobby desk, and all those other things that are my own and are perfectly serviceable. Bless. So it might be quite nice to get away from like distractions of stuff. But um, yeah, not going to get much done this weekend, especially seeing as well we're recording towards the end of the week on Thursday, and I don't know when I'm going to edit this, so this
Excellent.
won't be out on
Excellent.
time because I'm not going to be in the house.
Just
But
go raw. Put the raw audio out.
oh, good
Everyone will love
lord,
it.
could you imagine? And it's bad enough edited. Um, Maybe I need to find a laptop, but my laptop blew up on me. So if anyone would like to buy us a laptop, that would be greatly welcome. I don't expect anyone to buy a laptop, by the way. It's all good. So yeah,
Might be able
it's
to sort you
been
out there, actually.
really.
I might have a
Um,
spare one. It's not great, but it works.
it's
Anyway,
like
we'll
yeah,
talk. We'll
I
talk.
need
It'll be
I
fine.
need like a word processor and to be able to run Audible, and
Yeah,
that's
it'll do
about
that.
it. Like
It'll do
so.
that for sure. Yeah, we'll
Um,
talk about that.
okay, well, yeah, maybe we'll have to arrange a meeting. Yeah, with things like I had a funeral, family funeral, like the other
Hmm.
week, and then like a whole like day, a half day off work, gets lost to that and whatever, and then family stuff around that. It's just been a big thing. But hey, it is what it is.
But maybe another way of looking at it then, because I was actually, there's a few times where I've had some time and I was in sort of almost paralysis of like, I don't know what to start because I kind of
It's
didn't,
something
despite
for
what I
me.
just said, I was sort of like, I'm not working towards something
Yeah,
specifically,
big
so I'm a
time.
bit paralyzed, and then I was kind of cursing myself, like if I'd have any planned a bit more or be working towards something, then I would feel much more productive. Now I feel like I've wasted one of these highly precious times. Is there something that you want to do? Because I'm finding I'm spending quite a lot of time thinking about doing a thing,
I
and I need
think
to remember that I'm actually that's the thing I was planning to do. Is there stuff you want to do? Is it the Legion stuff?
the thing I want to do is always the game I'm not playing at the time, which I need
Mm,
to do.
mm,
Never works. I could be playing at the moment. We're playing a bit of Age of Sigmar at the club, and I want to paint like some heresy bits.
mm,
And then when I play more heresy, at that point I'll be like, oh, I really want to paint some Age of Sigmar. I don't really want to paint anything. I want something painted for
mm,
said game. But no, it's fine. Like I want to get these. I've started these legions thing. This is going to be my thing from moving forwards. I've started this because I started that blooming Saturnine Dreadnought, and it's got it like a load of colours blacked in, and then it sat
mm,
there because something else came up.
mm,
Which is one thing about GW sending us stuff. It's like, oh, cool, these Legion bits are here. Like, I'll try and get them done, and then stuff happens. You don't get them done. Then, oh, GW send us something else at some point, and you're like, oh, cool, I'll try and get that built. Okay,
I mean,
that
that
kind
is
of
a
thing.
thing. I mean, the channels and things that are obviously are quite
Oh,
specific. We cover a specific thing, and we still cover two games at least within that, or arguably four. You, they're all under the heresy banner. Those guys who are covering all the games,
hmm.
I mean, they're getting. I mean, at
Who
points, it was
knows?
like
We don't always get everything that everyone else gets,
absolutely
but
not.
someone like Spence Painting paints almost everything that
Well, this is
comes
what
at
I
him.
mean. People like
Yeah, it's
there are others who are not even painting it, but they're just getting stuff all the time in terms of a release schedule. You would want to be hoping you're a full-time content creator at that point
well,
because
yeah, a lot of them
how
aren't.
would you keep up? No, absolutely not.
Darcy Bono, you say Spence,
Mm,
a few others, but even the full-time content, like someone like M, I don't know how much recently she's had, but her full-time job is not Instagram. Her
mm,
full-time job
mm,
is commissions,
mm,
and then she's doing this for things like that. Richard Gray, he's not, not Neil. I mean, Neil was slow. That's why he doesn't do much anymore. Um, but even Henry, right?
mm,
They're trying to find a way. They can't always fit it in. He's talked about this recently. Can't always fit it into their schedule. What GW send them, so but they don't have to do it. But as we talked before, there's a desire because it's cool and they like it, but they've also got to manage
mm,
expectations of listeners and viewers. But it definitely is a kind of, I'll put that aside. And the amount of stuff where we've had it from GW, and I'm like, okay, cool, brilliant, this is coming. I'll put whatever I'm working on aside, try and get this done. Doesn't work, nothing comes in, and I've got 3 half-finished units of stuff. So I need to be better at try not to build when I'm at my desk. Try to build when I'm watching TV or what have you. There are times when I'm at the desk, I can be watching something a little bit off there. That's fine. But yeah, I want to get these done. To that point, I'm actually signed up for the hobby challenge for the independent characters, which
oh, nice.
is literally they do it super simple. 1 unit a month or equivalent, whether it's a terrain piece or a big thing, or game system irrelevant. Um, you earn 1 entry into the prize draw for each month you complete. Plus, there are 6 extra points you can get out of a list of about 10, like finish something you'd already started. Clean up your paint desk is one of them. Like, you can only get it once, but. And then they do a prize draw and they gave away some really good prizes last time. But I was like, cool. Maybe if I can try and focus down to try and get something done,
Mm,
um, I can. So these are those. You can start early. Okay, the good thing about this, right, is they're very much like they used to call it the war on grey plastic when they used to do them. And it's how can we help people get stuff painted? And they've been really well supported by Table War and KR maybe and Herrick Games in California, I think, and a few others. Anyone who listens to lots more people listen to independent characters than listen to us. But yeah, it's all about like how can we encourage you to paint some models, and I'm like, okay, cool, let's jump on. There's like I don't know how many people have signed up, but it's got to be 140 so far or something onto there. They've got their little threads on their Discord
Wow.
channel. If no one's listened to the independent character, it's nominally a 40k podcast, but they often have subjects where they talk about gaming in general, um, gaming groups. They talk a fair bit about Necromunda at the moment, bit of AT as well. But even when they're talking about 40k, it's not what unit's the best. It's not if they do a show of force, as they call them, as a an army overview thing. They do it based on history of the faction, models, play style, that kind of thing. So they're a very accessible podcast. They have some YouTube. They stopped the YouTube for a bit because it wasn't really getting the traction, the energy deserved on it. But who knows? But yeah, 40k independent characters is Carl's been doing it for a number of years now, and he is they smash it. They're really good. So check
Okay.
them out. Yeah, I think that some of their episodes like are just really valuable for gamers to listen to, no matter your game system.
Hmm.
Um,
I wouldn't have been able to tell you that they were nominally a 40k show. I mean, I haven't listened to them as frequently or as consistently as you have, but I was certainly picking and choosing episodes years ago when I was listening to them, and the quality of the show and the conversation was always very strong.
yeah,
Yeah, and so you can pick and choose topics, as you say,
yeah,
over that.
absolutely.
It's not
You
a
know,
well, they only talk about this.
they they're very keen on timeless episodes as well. So they tend not, they might mention some new releases, but they won't focus on new releases. They don't do a news section. They might do a round table at some point, which has questions that are relevant to the period of time. Like recently, they've been talking about the effect of leaks on
Mm.
independent
Mm.
retailers, things like that,
Well, that's a good
which is
conversation.
very timely, but also eternal
Mm.
as a question. So they're very good at that. They're much more organised than me, which allows them to do this kind of thing, and they've got a good bunch on there as well. And I've met almost all of them. They're very good people. So all gravy. Anything else on the intro? No.
I don't think
I
so. I
should
think we've got
mention
a.
we have sorry, I have a there is an event going on, and I will put the link in the show notes. You can find it on Facebook. Essentially, we are. Bear with me. I'm going to try and find it now. Blimey, I'll find all my deets. I was asked if I wanted to be part of or talk to a guy called Jamie about being part of an event. They basically want to have a multi-game event, and he works at a private school in or near. I'm trying to remember where it's near now. It is in. I want to say Ipswich. Am I right with Ipswich? Bury St Edmunds. So I'm near Bury St Edmunds, a private school. We're going to be there in half term or a weekend around half term, and it is a fantastic, glorious venue. It's just going to be Heresy this year. They the trial event basically to see how it goes. But looking forwards, he's got event organisers to run other game systems, and the accommodation can be included. You can stay on site,
Mm.
and
That's
you
huge.
you can buy
Much prefer
basically
that.
you can buy 3 tickets. I think two tickets. So you can buy either all gaming or you can go full board if you want, because food will be provided as well on site. And there's a gym and there's some other facilities as well. It's it's pretty cool. So if you are interested in, I'm just trying to find all the details now. Oh, my mind's gone blank. So yeah, the event is called No Quarter Incursion. Roros will burn, and it's at Colford School on October 24th to 26th. So the night before and all that. It's going to be 4 games. It's going to be 3,000 points. I haven't completed the pack yet because the game is so new. There's so many things to look at. I don't know how I'm doing scenarios. I didn't expect this game system to come out as it is. So we are in discussion. Well, we're not in discussion. I'm trying to work out how we're going to do things like terrain, which we'll talk about in a bit, scenarios, adding extra stuff in. Even October feels like it's still a little bit early in the cycle. We might have another book out by then from GW, which will be really cool if we do. So, yeah, if you're interested, you can find there's a Facebook page. I'll put the link in the show notes, and it's on the Heresy events calendar as well. But I think that's all the extra stuff to mention. So we'll stop that and we'll come back and let's chat about the new Legions Imperialis book. Okie dokie. News. Not a huge amount, but some cool stuff. So Perturabo's available as a Joy toy.
They continue to be bloody good, don't they?
They've been just pumping them out
Yeah.
over the things. It's like, I need to get Russ at some point. I don't even know if I'll be able to get him anymore. I'll have a look. Probably not through Warhammer site. Might have to go direct to get that one.
When you say won't be able to get them anymore, what do you mean? Do
I
they
don't know
stop
how. I
being
don't know
available?
how. I've no idea how Joy Toy work on there.
Oh wow, okay.
I don't know how often they make them.
I didn't realise there was a
I know. I
promo
don't know.
aspect of
I've
these.
no idea.
No, even speculatively, it didn't occur to me to think that they might be limited in some way.
Let me have a look. I'm going to have a look now. I'm on Joy Toy's website.
God.
Let's look for Leman of the Rust.
Warhammer merch, perhaps, as we have an affiliate link with them, of course.
We do, absolutely. If you do want to buy any cool t-shirts, or they do have some Joy Toy stuff in.
Tell you what I saw the other day, it's news, and it does have heresy on it. But on Warhammer merch, they now do children's clothing.
They certainly do.
Which I don't love most of it, although some of the baby grows were kind of amusing.
Yes. 8% off at the moment. Leman Russ.
Okay.
£103.
I think you can get an additional 10% in one way or another, but yeah, okay.
Can you? Okay.
With signing up to the newsletter and stuff like that. But,
oh yeah, who knows? Maybe I've not bought. From Warhammer. No, I'm looking at Joy Toy direct.
Okay, yeah, I'm on Warhammer merch.
I think Warhammer merch don't carry a huge amount.
Okay.
I think they do with the Joy Toys. They have merch. Is it merch.warhammer? Merch.warhammer. Oh no. Ooh. Computer's doing funny things. Here we go. Little Horace Axelmond. Yeah, you can get 10% off for signing up, which I haven't done yet. They did send me a cool t-shirt, which was nice. Yes, Russ is sold out, and he's 140 quid on that as opposed to 104.
Quite a lot of them are sold out, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they get a small amount of stock in. Got a Lehman Russ t-shirt though. Interesting.
There are models here in this Joy Toy range I didn't even know existed. I mean, the Predator.
Yeah.
That was a thing.
I follow them on Instagram, so I end up seeing they're like this new thing. And I'm like, oh bloody hell, that's like something amazing from a different. Yeah, they do a lot, big amounts. Anyway, so yeah, Joy Toy, cool stuff. The Horus Heresy series is dead. The Horus Heresy setting is very much alive.
Yeah, okay. Nicely put.
How do you feel about the Drop Site Massacre?
I'm very excited about it, and that very specifically for the reason that you've just effectively outlined there, because they mentioned the authors and editorial team mentioned at Weekenders back, if you can remember, in those distant days, that was going to be, and this isn't like an announcement, it was just that they had always imagined it as being conceived as a setting. There was clearly an ongoing narrative moving towards that thing. So that I was always interested to see how they might facilitate that, or whether they would sort of have them drop back in and insert in some way. And this is the first indication of it being treated like the other titles, of the other brands, I suppose, of under the Warhammer heading as a setting. And I think that, and the fact that they go all the way back to the drop site massacre and what's covered in this blurb is just, yeah, I'm here
Yeah.
for it completely. I'm
So
really
I
looking forward to it.
had discussion with someone online who was like, we need more Solar Auxilia and
Mm,
Imperial Guard stories, and certainly Solar Auxilia are completely underrepresented
mm,
in the lore. I absolutely agree with that, no problem. But it's a Space Marine story. The Heresy is a Space Marine story. No matter how
mm,
many billions of humans there are, it's the Space Marines that run everything. Like, no one was worried about what the 15th division of the whatever were doing on planet Jeff. It was Space Marines and some Titans. Like, that was
mm,
it. So, um, does that mean we shouldn't have any human stories? We definitely should. We definitely should. But they're going to focus on Space Marines. Um, we've already had the honored, and the unburdened were not part of the numbered series for
mm,
Heresy. There was another book as well that wasn't quite there. So we've had little dabbles around that. Um, it seemed a crazy idea to leave it and not come back to it, because even though we had 50, whatever it is, 54 books plus Siege, there were huge amounts of story that weren't actually covered. The
mm.
Drop Site Massacre was less than half a book, and
Yeah, quite.
and a couple of short stories. Looking back at the aftermath,
There's
right?
loads that you sort of look back now and think, actually, there's a lot more that could be covered on
Yeah.
that. No,
So if we
and
look at Drop
there's,
Site
yeah.
Massacre, you've got
Mm,
Fulgrim. Talk about it.
mm,
You've got the Raven Guard, little bit there of Corax, a smidge. You've got the Salamanders at the end of it, the short story, and there might be another. I can try and remember. I think there's another one, maybe two. Right, that's nothing for one of the biggest moments in the whole of
mm,
40k history.
mm,
So what we're getting here from Mr. John French, who's been mentioned a bit on the show recently. I need to message him actually. We have new perspectives in far greater depth. It follows loyalist forces dispatched by Rogaldon and Malcador the Sigillite to put an end to the rebellion. Follow old faithfuls such as Malagus the Twisted and Khan of the Eighth. Good, because Khan was terribly written in Book 3. And newer characters like Custerman, Oath of the Iron Hands, and Cadus Nex, the Blood Crow. So we know what happens, but I'm really looking forward to reading up about like the Seven Legions on their way to on
yeah,
their way to
completely.
Isfahan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We've nothing. We've had Rogaldon going go there, and we've had Farl, a short story about Farl, and that's
Yeah,
and some custodians talking to some like word bearers, and that's it.
yeah. And you're like,
That's been our build up.
how do they all draw together? Where are they coming from? I mean, that's an
Are they
incredible
talking to each other?
mobilization.
Just
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
see some Imperial Fists talking to some, Night Lords or what have you,
Funnily
in the
enough,
build up.
I've been re-listening to Oh No Fear recently, and that build up and that, I mean, it's a great, such a great
Yeah,
novel, obviously, of that covering that Calth atrocity. Tension that's there early on because you know that betrayal is coming, and the way that's portrayed, obviously, Dan Abnett leans into that massively and makes that sing the way it does. This is that to the to the power four. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Like there's that happening writ large. So exactly that interplay between those legions and how they're interacting as they're coming out. Are they communicating? Are they pretending to be friends? Are they a bit? Oh, that's a bit odd that they're a bit distant. Is it all of that stuff? Yeah, huge amount of that. I mean, obviously, being unthinkable. I think it's a really rich area that hasn't been covered before. There was Siege of Cathonia. that
No,
perhaps was a hint of this. That wasn't part of the numbered narrative, obviously.
no.
So that perhaps was an indication of where they were going to go with this, which I hadn't actually put two
Short
and two
stories,
together at the
though,
time.
wasn't it? Siege of Cassandra.
Yeah, true. Not a
So it
novel in the
doesn't
same way.
quite fit either, but
No,
still not numbered, not a numbered book.
no.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to looking at. I mean, even the stuff we've already covered. I've seen a lot of people say, "Oh, we're going back there. We're starting again." Are we? Well, no, we're not. We're talking. They're
Clearly not.
covering
No.
stories that are around the many effects, and for people who weren't around, like once we got to book 20 odd, whatever it was, there
Mm,
started to be a bit of a backlash from readers who were like, oh, just get on with it. Like, why are we
mm,
doing
mm,
this? Why are we doing that? Just get on with the main story. So eventually, Black Library were like, okay, cool, no worries, right? Anything that is not ending the siege, like a step towards ending the heresy, is going to be canned. And we're
mm.
going to do this to the point where we then had to beg basically for Peter Garman to
Yeah, Peter
have a
Garland being
story. So,
rushed through. Yeah.
so like there are there's 7.5 years with millions of space marines. Like there are stories to be told. There are stories to be told around the stories that are told because they
Mm,
can't cover everything. So um yeah, I want to see different perspectives. I definitely want to see some like Solar Auxilia and some Imperial Guard and stuff like that. But also there's, like I say, there's so much around, like the Space Wolf's getting beaten to a pulp. Like again, that's brushed
mm.
over. It's, oh, by
Yeah.
the way, Corax has found an almost dead Lehman Russ and helped them out. Cool. We don't really know what's happened there,
Mm.
that kind of thing. So there's so much potential for stories within that,
There
and
is over the whole arc of that thing. Yeah, I agree completely.
it's going to be really good. One non-heresy thing. Are you a Warhammer Plus subscriber?
Not anymore. Not anymore.
No.
Not this year. The no is the short answer. I won't expand on that.
So my payment came out today, and I didn't realise it was. I thought we were, because I normally go, oh, the miniature's available. Mine starts a month later because I got that free month when it
Mm,
started up, and then it was like, oh, your payment's taken. It's like, okay, cool. Well, I'll sell that Infinity's Lament to pay for it because that is
mm.
a phenomenal model.
It's so good. That
Both of
that
them,
did tempt me. Yeah.
both of them are so good, and I will sell mine
Mm,
because I probably won't pay this. I certainly won't use it. But I love the fact that they've got two necromancers in here,
hmm.
which is
Yeah.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
He got it. It took him a second, but
I was like, what? Is there with two fantasy ones? Oh, okay. Yeah,
no,
I see
no.
where he's going with that. Yeah.
But that is a superb model. I can see some people doing some real good paint
Hmm.
jobs on that. Because I still haven't watched all of Kill Lupical yet.
Me
I'm
neither. I
well
was
behind
waiting
it.
for it to all be available.
Yeah,
Quite a
which it
few
is
things
now, isn't it?
competing for time now with Strange
Yeah,
New
yeah.
Worlds and Alien Earth
Oh,
very much commanding a lot of time. But yeah, that is one I want to see as well. Yeah, that is
cool.
good actually. I might have to talk to you about that sale of that thing. You want to take a
Oh yeah.
laptop for this instead?
Well, maybe. The thing is, you can buy it for 20, was it 24, 28 quid, I think.
Mm.
So I will sell mine for more than that
Yeah,
on
clearly.
eBay
Yeah,
as
yeah,
soon as
yeah,
I
for
get.
sure. Well, you want to try and cover the
But,
cost of the
yeah,
sale. Yeah.
exactly. Find someone who wants the other one and ask them to buy a second one and pay them the cost. I
Mm.
think it's
Mm.
probably a good idea. So yeah, and then finally we've had the Imperialis Militia download. This has happened today. I have literally had 20 minutes to myself today, so I have not looked at it. I've seen some people talking about it.
Hmm.
Generally well received.
Yeah, and I flicked through it when it dropped, just because I wasn't expecting. I happened to have my lunch when about a minute after it dropped, so it was convenient. I had a look through it, and I really enjoyed the designer's notes as well. Them expanding on that, and particularly the point of them saying a fair few kits have come out that lend themselves well to this, the sort of imperial civilian vehicles of sorts, whether it
Yes.
could be that, introducing things like that. Quite a few of the model ranges that appear in Necromunda could be ported across by the use of these provinces of war. I thought that was very cool, and particularly the idea of like an all squat army, which I thought was fun.
which you could do in previous editions.
You could,
But
and it
it's
gives you that thing, but just to be more explicit about that and sort of lean into it, I thought was cool. And as you
it's
say, my read of it is that it's been quite read of community reaction was cautiously positive, even though it kind of is what it is. That it's quite niche.
yeah, it's one of those things that this is the PDFs. They've kind of suggested the PDFs are the stuff that you can go a bit crazy with and utilize models that they don't provide and things like that. It is interesting to see them like kind of actively like reaching across game systems within the SDS remit, and
Mm.
we know, or we don't know because no one's explicitly said it, but GW are trying to cut lines, divisions between game systems so they can clearly
Mm.
identify kind of the finances for each one and the levels and what have you. That they're then kind of gone, cool, use all your necromancer stuff in heresy, which is good. And it's, in an ideal world, whatever, and it would all be loads of rules for it and what have you. But it's interesting to see that they have kind of gone that way, even unofficially. It's not unofficially, but you know what I mean,
Mm.
in a non-prime manner with the legacies, um, Imperialis Militia. So some interesting rules, like it's a hard one. Again, talked in the law, talked about the book about 30k Age of Darkness heresy is about Space Marines. It's an imperial civil war between the Space Marines mainly.
Mhm.
No matter what kind of gets said about everything else, these might be underpowered. Like they were in second edition, they were like considerably struggled to have more than one potential build like on the table. The results were not competing with Space Marines, which could happen again. But this is the weird one. Should
Mm.
they? Like, should
Mm.
every army be fully balanced?
Mm.
Humans, in a world where statuses are a thing. We were talking previously, first edition. You could take your solar auxiliary, you could give your solar marshal, you could have leadership 10, and you could have a radio, and it could talk to every unit on the tabletop.
Mm.
So his solar auxiliary was organized than almost every legionary on the table, and
Mhm.
that felt wrong. So, like, why are you doing that? You don't want that, but then that means statuses hit them hard. But they put a rule in that statuses might not necessarily turn off scoring; it might limit how many points you can get from it, but still be able to utilize that. So,
I thought I thought that in particular was a very quite an inventive or quite a clever
mm,
little design rule, design space to say this is a mechanism which emphasizes the fact that these guys are a forlorn hope. They've got no chance if they're being thrown in and they are not being
yeah,
withdrawn or otherwise. Then they are effectively being used as a speed bump or a flush out the minefield or whatever. They're being used in a particular way, and so the way that rule encourages their use in that form around objectives, I thought was quite elegant. I thought it was quite a cool little nod to that. And I think that addresses that point exactly, where you think, well, what? Hang on, I've got these really basic troop types that are clearly going to just completely evaporate in the face of these super soldiers that are designed specifically to remove this kind of thing.
yeah,
How do you make that work as a game? Do you do that purely through points and say, yeah, but I've got 200 of these guys? Well, the problem is with that mechanism, which is a particular way of playing it. It's almost like the horde mode, if you like, of a miniature war game. One, that is a commitment in terms of how you actually model the thing, and two, it can throw out. It can be quite janky with the way the actual engine of the game, the rules mechanics work. So I think looking at alternative options for that, good move. And I think they've done quite well. That little nods like that, I think, are quite cool. Same as the third line rule suggested the equipment they're using is subpar, shall we say?
yes,
that used to be quite severe. They've got a version of that now. Now it's glancing hits, you lose a whole point. Unlike the normal rules. I thought that was quite cool. It wasn't as it's still there, it's still present, it's still a thing, but it wasn't quite as debilitating as the version that was there previously.
What's
So good update, I thought.
Yeah, what's interesting is, I think you're limited to 2 provinces across an army, which makes some sort of sense because mixing and matching too many rules can cause issues anyway. But the detachments allow a lot of cool stuff. You want 8 Ogrin units, cool, you can have it. You want 8 units of cavalry, brilliant. That's 1 detachment. Like, knock yourself out. You want 8 tanks, cool, you can have them. Like, there seems to be like a lot to play with there, which is really cool. Whether they'll be any good or not, kind of irrelevant, because it's giving you an option to create different armies, and you can play within that as you wish. So yeah, you don't want to be blown off the board every time you put it on there. That's the only thing. You want to be able to enjoy the game. But maybe we'll look at that next episode. We're starting to get a kind of list of things to do per episode, so that's a good thing. And we'll move forwards with that. I think that's all the news, though. The news.
Yeah, I think that kind of covers.
It's Nova going on at the moment. They have no preview. I suspect we'll get a preview in the next month or so.
Yes, I thought there was one that was touted being talked about, but no, probably not.
No, we'll see. I think because there were people still talking about the preview, but the preview got cancelled a long time, well, a month and a bit ago at Nova, and got turned to that game night thing. But certain people still seem to have talked about a Nova preview. Whether they then show something at some point in the weekend, who knows? But I think they're going to move away from too many previews. It must be quite difficult, particularly when they've had some delays recently. If you've organised a preview and you've got X things on it, and you know one of them's going to be 2 months delayed, do you just take it out and have a lackluster preview? Or
And get criticised for that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or put it on there and have a longer wait, which causes other problems. Or I don't know. Anyway, yeah, that's cool. Should we leave that one there?
Yeah, I think that covers all the essential news. Oh, the other small thing is combat forces.
Oh, yes, missed them.
I say small.
Amazing.
That
It's
actually
massive.
was a really big deal.
Yeah,
As an
how did I miss them?
entry point into the game, I thought that was brilliant. Came out of nowhere. Such a good idea.
Yeah, and the militia one's like real good value. I'm trying to find the article now.
I like them all, to be honest. I like all three of
Oh
them. I think
yeah.
are
Oh,
good.
here
I
we
think
go.
any
Convoy.
of them would come out well. You say the militia one is considerable. You get a lot of stuff in that one.
So I saw some people kind of bemoaning the Leviathan choice in that, Leviathans are fine. They're not stellar, but they're fine. 20 dudes is cool, Rhino's cool, but these are starter sets. Like, they're not. Yes, they are really good if you're gonna start playing Mechanicum and you want that kind of list. Yeah, you can go and buy 2 or 3, but that's not why GW are putting them out there. But GW are
No.
putting them out there to say, try this, and as a try this force with that Marine, it's fine. Like, it's cool. It's a good
Well, yeah,
start.
exactly that. And
Mechanicum's super cool.
the idea of a ready but done box of an allied detachment, I think, is quite a good move as
Yeah,
well. We
and the
don't know what
solars up there are
prices are going to be
nice.
yet, do we? But the solar one,
No,
yeah, is
you
particularly
could
good because
probably
that does
guess.
feel like you could buy multiple. I'm
Mm,
guessing sub 100. I'm guessing this is going to sit around the 90 quid mark, but not sure.
yeah. Either way, I think they're really good. But yeah, and
I
it
agree.
just makes it that much easier. What do I need to get? Okay, cool. Grab this box. Away you go. As I say, it's not like Leviathans are complete trash. Right? They're limited, but you can happily use them. And the solar
Oh
one's
yeah.
got loads of cool stuff in. So yeah, that's a big win, and is something that with the move to plastic allowed this to happen. Heresy relied a little bit on those big box games for people for some people, getting in was about those big box games and getting enough, maybe splitting it. But these allow a lot more options for getting into the game, which is awesome.
You imagine if
Groovy.
something like this had dropped at the same sort of time when we first started seeing plastic heresy in general, like Betrayal at Kelf
Yeah,
era. Something like this had dropped, people would have lost their minds. it's as you say, it says a lot. But I would suggest that that these sorts of things will exist for any other factions that go fully plastic as well and become factions in their own right. Who knows? But I think these are a great thing. I also think it's cool that they dropped all three at the same time. I think that was quite a nice thing to do, rather than sort of
leave
a more
people
piecemeal
guessing.
thing
Yeah,
doing it. Yeah, I think this is quite
no,
cool. But that, I think, is it now.
yeah, well done. Good catch. Awesome stuff. Well, we'll be back next month. Yeah, we'll talk about all that at the end of the show anyway. But yeah, those are cool stuff. Awesome. All right, cheers, Howard.
Cheers. Speak to you soon.
Righty-ho. Games Workshop sent us a copy of the Liber Strategia, a PDF, so we could share it really easily, which is really nice. Not that we get to keep it, but could be better, could be worse.
This
Um,
document will self-destruct in quite.
Basically, yeah, exactly, or even worse. So there's been a lot of online chat about in the LI community about what this book's going to do for the game, and I'm sure people have seen little bits and pieces now from elsewhere, but we'll give our little take on it. Should we? All right, first off, right, the how to use the book section. I'm just going to read this. So this lays out what this book is for. So each army list has its own section in this book presenting formations data sheets for each detachment available to that army list alongside any additional special rules that apply to those detachments. The army list contained within this book and the formation detachments and special rules within them supersede any previous iterations found in the Imperialist rulebook, the Great Slaughter, Devastation of Talon, Rise of the Dark Mechanicum campaign books. So those books are now lore books, if you've got them. Cool.
Very good
And
ones,
then,
I hasten to add, as we commented at the time.
One of the main changes is Collegiate Titanica Knight households. As such, for the rules for strategic assets on page 198 and 205 of the Imperialist rulebook are superseded by those in this book and their appropriate army list. So that's what this book is. Nice that they made it pretty clear in there. Like I say, like you may have the old books, cool. You can read the lore. Don't worry about the army stuff. This is what is current now. And that's it. That's all this book is. This is rules.
Which is kind of
some
obvious when you look at the contents page, of course. And
it
it's
is.
a rare beast to see a GW publication, particularly one from the Specialist Design Studio,
Yeah.
that has no lore. It's
No.
unusual. It is front to back army lists. That's it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, the only one thing you do have is like some of the detachment, like what do you call them? Like breakdowns, like kind of things. A little bit of
I know what you
pick.
mean. Yes.
Which
Those
people
little
do use that kind of thing. Give you an
exemplar.
idea.
Yeah, they have sort of color. It's almost like it's the
Color
Legion's
plate.
equivalent of color plates. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got a little bit of that, which can give a little bit of flavour, but that is not why you're buying this book.
No,
You're buying this
completely.
book so you have the current rules. So it becomes pretty important in terms of, if you want to play people that, and you want to play with the current rules, you're going to have this book.
It's
or
quite
the
a
rules from
compelling
this book.
thing for people starting the game as well to say, here's a rule book. What do I need for this? Rule book and this book, rather than rule book and these 4 expansions. That is not quite the same type of thing. This makes it an easier entry point.
I don't know what, I don't know why they've done this book in this way. I would suggest that the Titanicus had a version of this effectively, but that was after more books. This is a game that's 2 years old. Yeah, I received it when I was in the
Yes.
hospital 2 years ago.
Okay. Hmm.
And we're already having a book come out that's rewriting a lot of points and changing things up after 2 years. That I don't. If someone complains about that, I can see their point. That it's a big shift. On the
Yeah.
on the counter to that, do I want them to not change things that need changing? So I suppose the question is, at what point do you not want a free PDF that updates stuff to
Mm.
then having, like, are there enough changes in this book to warrant a new book compared to having an update document online?
I would argue that the more compelling reason for this even existing is its compilation nature, particularly as opposed to Titanicus, where you are quite likely to have gone in on a Legio, so you would buy a book for them. Whereas here, an army, the range of units you could pick for your faction was spread across those books. So for me to have a complete army list from which to choose my units from, there I had to have it across those four books. Which even if you bought the books, which is a bit of an ask, to have people to have it all, if particularly if they're starting out, it's logistically challenging to then sit with you've got all the books open and like, well, hang on, where's that one again? Oh, where's that? I mean, I even find it now, even with the digital publications they've done of them, that's difficult to do across the
Fair.
four. Whereas here, you can go to the single point of reference, makes army building, um, yeah, apps aside, makes army building considerably easier.
Fair. Yeah, that's a valid point. I suppose with the amount of, I mean, they've added some stuff in as well.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's an argument? I suppose it depends. Trying to look at the relative size of when does Solar Auxilia start? You could, so they start about page 79, 78. So
Mm.
the first 78 pages of this book are Space Marines. If you're just doing it as a compilation, you could argue that you could do a Space Marine book. These could be softback like other books are,
I've
and
seen other people say the same thing about they were
you
a little disappointed this wasn't a softback book.
or
But
multiple softback books.
yeah, making them cheaper. Yeah, yeah,
Mm. And people who just want to play Space Marines then don't have to, you know, purchase the rest of it.
that's fair.
Uh,
I think
I,
that's a
we don't
consideration.
know. We haven't been told any official information about why this book's been made the way it has. Those are the various things that all come into it. I think possibly the amount of changes, like it's not that usual to have that many changes. I don't think. Um,
Mm.
but I have said before that I think, especially, I mean, we look at the old world had a recent update which had some fairly big changes to the way the game's played. I believe that Titanicus could have done with an update on the rules mainly rather than the units within. That there are sometimes balancing, or well, actually, no, tell a lie. I said it about the rules as well, the points costs
Mm.
in Titanicus, haven't we? Like, particularly the Warhound weapons, you
Mm.
having one or two or maybe three choices once they brought the extra ones in. That, that,
It
that
feels like,
it
I mean,
feels
Titanicus felt slightly tricky, but changing unit stats, well, like weapon stats in Titanicus or points even, because that game is quite, it leans heavily on cards, printed material, terminals and cards, and they're not really optional in that game. Whereas with Legions, that was kind of almost more annoying, and I use that term in inverted commas, over the unit cards for that. They are entirely an optional extra,
sure.
a labor saving device. So the fact that they've updated those,
But there
pay
are
attention
there are
more than you
definitely
do.
ways.
Mm, mm.
I'm sure everyone who's invested in AT wouldn't have minded spending £8, £9, £10 on a new weapons card pack, which had
Fair.
a good selection of all the weapons if they were repointed or adjusted to make that work. But what I'm kind of saying is it feels like every specialist design game or most specialist design games have had um, they've come out with some how the best way of saying it, like they've had some issues in their first editions. Necromunda went through a lot of different stuff. Um, After it was released, AT had some stuff. Old World, second edition Heresy, a little bit. Um, Legions Imperialis, there was a few things that people were questioning. The validity of that statement, I don't know. I'm putting it out there as a not necessarily a definite trend, but a potential issue. But this book is, if you want to play, I think it. If you're a dedicated Legions Imperialis player, you're going to buy it, aren't you?
Yes.
Right, is what it is.
Oh, no question. Yeah.
The question is, do the casuals want to be spending money on this, or do they want to go in with Tipex on their on their other book and make adjustments? I don't know. Anyway, who knows why they made this book, but they've updated stuff. Yeah, it's one of those many reasons, or a combination of one of those some of those many reasons. So what? You've been a bit more on this than I have. I've had doing other bits and pieces. What are your main takeaways? Yeah.
It was interesting seeing both my own thoughts because I was quite surprised when it was announced
Mm.
that it was going to exist, and I like everyone else, you sort of think, well, what is this? So your expectations start going into different places, and you think, is this going to rebalance rules? Is this going to change a lot? Is this going to add a lot? Are we going to see new units for everyone? Are we going to need new formations? Particularly the way army construction works in Legions, it all gets quite interesting what they can do with a
Mm.
product like this. It became clear just flicking through it as soon as it dropped over to us. I wanted to flick through it and get an inset. So it was immediately apparent that it was the extra units were the ones that they had previewed alongside it for the Marines, and there weren't extra units for other factions. No reason to say there was going to be. Sort of imagined there might be. There's a couple of extra. There's formations. What do they call them now? Iconic formations, not formations of legend anymore. There's a handful of those, and the changes to it. When I first looked at it, I thought, well, I don't have enough of an encyclopedic knowledge of this game to be
Yeah.
able to instantly look at this and go, okay, so it didn't feel like sweeping changes. The longer I've sat with this book and the longer I've watched people speculate what this is going to be, and I have to say the Warcom article that they had published with designers' notes in it was really good. I thought it was a really good summary of what they had done and why they'd done it. I thought it was one of the better Warcom articles for that sort of thing. It was a nice companion, and them explaining, well, we're going to take the opportunity to make the opportunity arises to make a compilation book. We're going to take the opportunity to revisit some units that are underperforming or overperforming, much like a balance update you would get for perhaps some of what would be known as a balance update for other games. And they touched on a few things there. So it doesn't wholesale change a bunch of things. Interestingly, quite a few people in the various groups, WhatsApp groups, Discord groups, and similar, seemed absolutely certain and quite hopeful that Legion traits would change or be adjusted. Not
Mm.
wholesale necessarily. That's not what they've done with this. They've chosen not to do that. But I do think there's quite a few things that feel quite small. There's points changes. That's one of those things that
Yeah.
they have done over units, particular units that were seen to be performing well or otherwise. But they have tweaked some of the stats of some of those units,
Yes.
and there's some of the other smaller things they've done that I think are surprising. Small things seem to be surprisingly impactful, I suppose, appropriately, with legions. I noticed that they've changed how some of the upgrades work. For example, they now things that were
Mm.
previously an upgrade to a previous detachment are now a separate detachment. And that because of this sort of slot formula, which we saw in this first, and you could argue then has a very similar or an inspired approach happens with the
Heresy.
Age of Darkness, yeah,
Yeah.
is it's quite impactful doing that because suddenly within a formation, rather than taking one slot which you then add upgrades to, you are now filling several
Mm.
of the other slots in the formation, which can be quite limited, and so you're therefore made to make choices. I think that's quite interesting that he does that, where army composition and similar becomes trickier, and that's something this book is doing. it's very clear what this book was setting out to do, or at least it certainly is within the book itself. And I
Sure.
think as of that article, I think their communication around it's actually been quite good.
So
With all
just
the
to cover myself a little bit there, I didn't read the article. It came out at a point when I was busy, and it kind of slipped past me. So, but also I'm aware that communication from GW. Now, I'm not going to be sitting here and say GW lied to us. I'm not that. We're not that kind of podcast. But sometimes we're not told the whole truth. It's marketing at the end of the day. So cool. But yeah, okay, fair enough. May have got that completely wrong. Hold my hands up. Yeah. So I sat down with this book and I opened it up, and first off, the Heresy team covers in Specialist Design. They cover all the Heresy games. So a writer could be writing on this, and then later on could be writing a Age of Darkness thing and what have you. As far as I'm aware, that's how it works. And they do Aeronautica Imperialis Heresy, whatever it's called as well, and AT. So like the team, however big that is now, I don't know, work on all these things. And you're right, this detachment thing seems to be the way they want to try and bring narrative forces to the table within the game systems, and I think it works quite well. I sat down with this book and thought, right, well, let's just go through it and see how much has changed. And I gave up pretty quickly because I wrote like half a page of stuff like, oh, Legion Armored Company gets an HQ now, so you can run it with an HQ in there. Okay, cool. Oh, Storm Eagle points have gone up. Oh, drop pad assault. They put in there. They must start in there. Didn't have that before. That's a tidy up. Okay, so it is doing a lot of different things. Adding Volkite to Legion Command. Missile launchers and terminators going up. Points in the TAC detachment, but not necessarily elsewhere, which is an interesting thing. So they're obviously taking a look at how things are being used, where they think they're being used, and I haven't played much Legions. I must admit, I do want to get more on the table, but there's a lot of complaints about infantry, about missile launchers, and a lot of different things like that. Where you immediately see that the missile launchers have gone to a 5-up to hit with their multi-shot.
That's quite big,
With their
and it's
multi-shot stand.
one of the
Yeah.
often commented things about a change that could have been made, and now they have.
So they have taken that in. Leviathan storm cannons have got better. Those kind of little things are contemptors now. Are contemptor detachments are contemptors. Like Leviathans are a different thing, which is probably a much cleaner way of doing things, much simpler way of handling things. But then even changing upgrade points, so having slightly different points on adding units in, increasing. I think they increased the size, didn't they, of contemptors as well? And at this
It
point,
was quite big though before. You could have 10, I think.
yeah, but they've added They've added more in, but they've
I see.
taken
Okay.
from the Leviathans. Effectively, you can have more in the contemptors. I was like, okay, cool. This is going to take me forever because I'm going to have to sit with 3 different books. Right, flick this one over. Right, what unit, what detachment have I got here? Whatever. Go and find it in one of those 3 books, and then look at adjusting it. And we
Cross-reference.
were originally going to do, when we were told we were getting this book, we didn't fully know what this book was going to be. We were like, brilliant, we'll get an episode out on release day talking about this book. And I was like, oh my God, that's going to be boring. It's just going to be us going, well, this unit's gone
Then
up
on
5
page
points.
7, it does this.
Yeah, like you can find, I'm sure someone will do that kind of information, but I wouldn't listen to it. It would get very dull very quickly.
But it's those who are closer to it, and there are people, and certainly in the WhatsApp group I'm in, the London Wargaming Guild, there are people there whose knowledge of the game is sufficient that isn't
Yeah,
quite as
absolutely.
challenging as it would be for us. So they'll smash it.
No, but it's still dull to read out all the stats. Not it's important, but it would still be a dull podcast to listen to. So yeah, you know, this segment has now become this segment rather than, oh cool, we're going to get a book and we can be I was like, there's no lore. Okay, there's no pretense to this book. This is they're telling you exactly what you're going to get. But hey, it's cool. It's
It was
cool.
much easier to focus on the Marines as well because the Marines are
Yes,
so much more familiar. I mean, trying to know the ins and outs of some of the more obscure Mechanicum units, you're like,
absolutely.
these are not sitting in my head. It's in the same way. But the missile launcher was a big one that stood out, that they made a change to that. Points went up considerably, and they moved it to a 5+ per there. So its overall utility is different now.
Yeah, but I tell you what, some of the things like it seems pretty thorough. Like
Yeah.
whether it's enough, whether they're the right changes or not, I'm not qualified to talk about. But Plasma's got a shorter range, but it's gone to assault. Like
Mm.
that's a quite a
Tentful.
specific,
Mm.
yeah, like change there. Like so, it's not like they've just gone, oh, we need to put missile points up, and people are moaning about like, I don't know, whatever. Some of the transports were, um, shifted in points. Some of the tanks have gone down. Like it's not just like, oh, people are complaining about this. It's like plasma's gone down 2 inches, but there's assault. Okay,
Mm.
fair enough. That's an interesting one. So yeah.
Well, like, the one I thought was interesting was one of the people in one of the chats was commenting. He said, "I'd like to see termites change," because he had a bunch of them, and he thought they're just not good relative. They're not efficient relative to drop pods, and he would rather have seen them kind of have an increase in their firepower or their closer fault salt factor or something like that. Where what has happened is drop pods have got quite a lot more expensive. They've
Mm,
nearly doubled in some places, and you think, okay, that starts to make it a different kind of equation. The Palisade, the sort of upgraded drop pods, the Death Storm, in the case of the regular drop
yeah.
pod, and the Dreadnought having the Palisade the shield drop pod thing, they are their own. This is an example which I thought was quite an interesting one, where they are no longer an upgrade for for the detachment, typically a dedicated transport detachment. They are now their own support detachment, which that in an army construction thing is like, oh, okay, that's interesting that I can now access them that way, which I think is both is sort of a neutral move in some ways, but it
Well,
might make it
I
trickier
don't.
to hold it in.
I think it's probably an army construction limitation that
Mm,
is
mm,
sensible. So you can't just bang out as many as you want. It's like, okay, you can do this. If you want to use that, you're going to have to give up something
yeah,
in that detachment. Yes, you can take more detachments, blah blah blah, but there are pluses and minuses to that approach.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so cool. you
Yeah,
know,
I was,
I think.
and well, to add on to your point, that sort of thoroughness and what I called intentfulness,
Mm,
those sort of nature of those moves, I think it's quite consistent with how the FAQ was received. The FAQ for Legions was incredibly well received. Unusually for an FAQ for a
yeah.
game where with a fairly vocal community, as we see across all of Games Workshop's games, who normally there's quite a lot of people going, "Oh, there's not enough. They don't understand it. Why people ask these questions?" Whatever. This was unusual that everyone was saying, "Whoever's written this seems to really know this game, knew what was needed, and has made some pretty bold things." That, of course, people often ask for other things. There are some of the core mechanics that people perhaps would have wanted to see tweaked even further with this book, but I would argue a lot of that was done with the FAQ already.
Mm,
Changes to infiltrate and some of those sorts of things, or even the sort of how effective rending is, that sort of thing as a core mechanic. Um, Changes things. Now, points though, adjusting points does make some significant changes to that, but perhaps not as much as that. My point being, the team writing it, there seems to be quite a capable,
yeah.
quite a caring, if I want to, but I'm trying to avoid that word,
Attentive.
group. Yeah, better. Yeah, better. And I feel this book continues that thinking.
I like I like that they've gone in and haven't just used points,
Mm,
which
mm, yeah.
for Age of Sigmar and 40k, they're reluctant to change. Well, they have a different system, so it becomes harder because changing specific books. But in general, points are the system they use to balance, unless something's egregious. Either way, but going in here and making changes, like that plasma one really surprised me.
Mm,
But sometimes points become they get to a knife edge very quickly with points, and sometimes it's um, you want something to be an option. And sometimes the rules for something are what makes it good. You either price them out or they're obnoxious. So there's but that's not good for selling toys or for people enjoying the game. People want to use like Jeff loves sabers, so he wants to use sabers. It turns out sabers are really crap, so he can't use them. Makes him sad. Does he want to play the game? That kind of thing. You want them, even if they're suboptimal, you want to be able to feel like they can do something on the table. There have been times in lots of games where you just didn't take a unit even if it was free because it was a liability. Um, that has happened. I've seen people literally say, "Yeah, if you gave me a free one, I wouldn't take it because of these disadvantages associated with it." That kind of thing. You don't ever want to be there, so it feels like they're walking that line. And to be honest, as I say, without actually playing the game and using this book, I wouldn't be able to tell you like the overall effect. But from a flick through, it seems that there's some very sensible. Whether the changes are sensible in the concept of the change is sensible. I can see why they've done it. I can see the thinking behind it. Um, Sometimes you go too far. Sometimes you don't go far enough. That's a different. That's a different conversation. But yeah.
Yeah, I was quite impressed overall with this. I mean, there are a couple of, much like when they have one of those campaign books and new units are introduced, there's typically a couple of formations that go with that, and that's true here as well. There are generic, general use formations that get introduced that can do that. There is that Stonebreaker formation. You think, yeah, okay, that's quite cool that you can do that. But there was. Am I surprised? I was surprised that the super heavies weren't in this book. The Legion super heavies.
Yeah.
They haven't been announced, but given that they have announced that we're getting plastic versions of the Fellblade and the Glaive, I think, although it's not been announced, but it's looked at that. Looking in the back of the trailer, it's speculating wildly, probably quite likely. One would assume those are going to exist in this as well.
I wonder if there was part of the problem with the lead times required on these is that was probably slated for a book, and I wonder if this was an additional thing that they weren't planning on a year and a half, 2 years ago, and they decided that it needed or to be there, or an opportunity came up to do it, whichever. Whereas they were like, "Cool, we've got a Talarn book coming soon, and that's the place that, or whatever, that's going to be the where we're going to put the super heavies. So we don't need to put them in here. That's our release for 3 months' time, or what have you." That makes logical sense to me. What do you think of the? So we split up. What GW also sent us some models. So I got some mastodons and some typhons.
And some
And you got
tokens. Don't forget the
some tokens
tokens.
and some tokens.
And
And
I
you got
got some
some.
Cerberuses and some whirlwinds, whirlwinds and scorpiuses, and some vindicators.
Have you had a chance to have a look at them yet? Or have you
I
been busy?
have, I have been busy, but I have had a good old nose at those as well. Nothing out of the ordinary. I was a little surprised that the vindicators were the siege variant, i.e., the variant with the demolisher cannon only. I was
Yeah.
surprised they didn't do like they do in their bigger brothers kit, where you have either that or the laser destroyer, because they tend to quite like a dual kit, even if it was a 4 and a
Does it
4.
depend on how the gun mounts in? Maybe I don't know, but no, it shouldn't
Yeah,
do
not
really, because
necessarily. I would have thought it would have been. It
you
wouldn't have
could
been on the
do
wit of man to have that be a
no.
interchangeable type of thing.
Do you know why? The laser destroyer is going to come in. The actual gun's going to come in 17 part.
Yeah, I mean that does. I mean that's the Rhino chassis is. I like it. In terms of its Legion Imperials
Mm.
model, the model is incredibly detailed. It is fiddly as all goodness. With the particularly, I find the exhausts on the Demos Rhino chassis challenging, and the little bits. However, I'm sneaky one. The ones I thought would look coolest, or look coolest, it's a hard thing to call. I think the whirlwind's cool to see. To see a whirlwind in Heresy era whirlwind, harking back to that kind of design style of some much older iterations of the whirlwind, I thought was super cool. Seeing that having a distinct role alongside the Scorpius was cool. Vindicator and the Scorpius, not entirely surprising that they were going to come. My Iron Warriors are certainly looking forward to having those added in to there. And I've always quite liked the Cerberus, and I think it suits Legions very well.
Yeah, it's cool. So
I
I
think
was,
all of the Spartan hull ones are pretty cool.
yeah.
What did you think? Because you had the Mastodon, which is the most interesting one, I think.
Well, the Typhon's fine, like to build, like tracks. These size tracks, getting the mold lines off is an absolute. This is what takes me so long to build these models. It's getting the mold lines off the tracks. Like everything slows down to do them. Luckily, I don't have to do the underside. Just have to make sure they're flat on the surface. They went together fine. The hull of the Mastodon, lovely, no worries. The bits, oh my word! Like the hull takes 25% of the time to do 80% of the model. The next 20% takes 75% of the time. It is like the sky arrays in. Well, you build the array, which is the holder, which is in three parts. Then each gun goes on separately. The void shield generators are separate. Yeah, of course, you've got the hatch. The gun on the front, actually, the melter is two-piece, which is quite nice. Las cannons, two-piece sponsons. Yeah, they're bad enough. The flamer is in three parts because they managed to put the hole in the flamer, and so you build the sponson and then you just put the barrels of the flamer on the front. And I love these kits. They're amazing. They look amazing. I would have accepted 20% less detail.
20%. Wow.
I think so. I think that there's like even big models, they're small. Like
Yeah.
this is the one problem with GW being as good as they are. I know people say, "Oh, why can't you do that?" Well, they would if they could. Like, I'm pretty sure they don't like making everything as like fiddly just because. Like, there's a reason that their models come in so many parts at times. There's a reason why you get some weird bit because of the molding process. I'm not an expert, but they're not doing it to punish you. That's not what they're doing. They're doing it for a very good reason. But as someone who's not a majorly accomplished hobbyist who doesn't enjoy painting a huge amount, I'm like, I'd just rather build them in half the time. Like, get them on the table. And they're a victim of their own kind of claim to be the greatest model company and out there. Yeah, it almost like putting those flamers together. Almost it's the closest I've ever come to going. Just what? Well, yeah, apart from the old days when I had a metal planet killer for
You've mentioned this
Battlefleet
before.
Gothic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Apart from that one, which literally went back in the box as soon as I opened it, and I sold it about 12 years later.
I mean, that says, I mean, that's a different metal models for a whole other conversation.
Different.
I remember thinking when I was building a Warmaster Titan, it was a similar kind of thing. It's like this is a no messing about, and I found this actually with a few GW kits, particularly actually the Legions ones. They are, well, actually, I think it's true of a lot. The instructions aren't entirely optional. They are.
Well, no.
These models are becoming suitably complicated that it's quite difficult to just look at it and be able to put it together. Which I would say was entirely possible with a generation or two ago of kits. These ones are more complex. You've got to pay attention. Some of them, and particularly some of the bigger ones, they're challenging.
Sometimes it's not clear where you have to, how you put them together and glue them with the instructions.
No.
Sometimes they've got you almost want the other angle of where they're showing you that it goes on the model, because it
Yeah.
doesn't just sit on, it actually clicks in or what have you, and it's not
Mm.
always clear until you built one what you're doing with it. So every now and then I build one, I'm like, oh yeah, there's a little bit of a gap here. Like the next one goes together flush because I now know that I have to actually. I mean, look at the Cenobium, not the Cenobium, how to build the Saturnine
Mm.
Terminators.
Mm. Mm.
That
That's
the
a good
article
example.
they put out is
Mm.
different than the build instructions.
Mm.
So yeah, they've reached a point where they're doing stuff. Even, I mean, we talked before about painters where the kits are almost too detailed for
Yeah, I've seen
top
several
range
painters
painters
talk
to
about
want to
that. Mm.
paint stuff. So there's swings and roundabouts to all this. I'm not, it's not a wholly negative thing. I've got quite, I don't know, I'm not very like dexterous. My fingers, like I'm a bit like kind of ham-fisted. These are very small parts, and I get frustrated with it at times.
Well, that's
But
what I was going to ask because on the one hand, I mean, like I use the War Master as an example. I mean, that because with that, realizing that was a more complicated kit, I enjoyed it on a different level because I suddenly enjoyed it because of the challenge it was as a model kit, which starts leaning back into how I used to view not this hobby specifically, but I used to build airfix kits or
mm,
that sort of thing. Like actually, a part of the enjoyment was the literal modeling and the building of the kits. And if it's more challenging, because it's tempting to say, people joke about it. You're like, it's harder to put together. Well, then arguably you've got better value out of the kit because it's taken up, or it's a it's more of your time is being used on it,
or
this
it's
is
more of a
a
chore.
pastime. And that's the flip side, of course. If you don't enjoy it, then it's a chore.
The the problem is if you build mechs, if you build
Mm,
airfix kits, that kind of thing, the whole point of them is to build them and paint them.
mm,
However, if you're building Warhammer models, you might just be building them because you want to play with them.
mm.
So there's more than one way to approach this.
There is.
Whereas with those specific modeling kits, they are modeling kits. These are
Mm,
playing pieces that are also models.
mm,
So not everyone's going to be like, I want to do this the best I can. I'm going to, you know, I, I think I probably do need to get better snips,
mm,
particularly for some of these pieces. Like you clip it off and cleaning tools as well. Like you're getting some of these gate points on really awkward parts of a model to take off. It's
mm,
not
mm,
not always, one slip of a knife because guess what? My modeling tool is not good enough to get
mm,
into
mm,
certain places or what have
mm.
you. So I'm having to use a modeling knife to do it. And yeah, again, small kit, one slip, you've taken off a gun barrel or
Yeah, yeah.
something like that as well. So it's a gripe rather than a moan.
Yeah, and it's interesting a different approach one has, and but actually, you speak to a good point there. I'm actually surprised at the robustness of the Legions Imperialis kits, particularly gun barrels. Given that you've got las
Yeah,
cannons,
to be
autocannons,
fair.
stubbers, things like that, I'm actually surprised, and exhausts is the other one, where you've got spindly small pieces. They've
Mm,
obviously oversized. That's why this idea that you just take the bigger kit and shrink it, that doesn't work whether you're
no,
designing a plastic kit or even indeed doing a 3D print. It doesn't work simply taking the bigger version and scaling it down. You have to spend time thinking through
yeah.
how you're going to do that and scaling certain details up and otherwise for them to work. And it does make those Legions kits are surprisingly robust. The
So
las things they're not snapping off.
yeah. So do I want more mastodons? Yes. Do I want to build them? No. So it pushes them down the order a little bit. Anyway,
Mm,
we should probably talk about a little bit about what some of these do in the new rules. So we
mm.
start with I'm on the Cerberus here actually. 24-inch range, 3 dice, 4+, -3 AP, shock pulse, gun.
Shock pulse. Yeah, it's so good
It's
as a thing, and this being a sort of meatier version of the version that you can get on the Saber is pretty good.
Well, this is what. So we spoke again. Like there was talk around certain aspects about the game having issues with buildings, with titans, with certain stuff. Like, well, that's going to deal some damage. That gun, on a relatively, like it's not the biggest chassis. We talked about needing super heavies and things like that, but it's a super heavy. It's 85 points to do that for one, and then 80, 150, 210, and then the Typhon. So 16-inch for the Dread Hammer, 2 dice, 3s to hit, -4, Demolisher ignores cover. So these are the kind of things, as the range expands, I think the game's going to get better.
I found it the Typhon is one in particular I found interesting because I'd actually tried to make some rules for one of these myself. I
Right.
tried to extrapolate this out to try and proxy some with
Mm.
Spartans I had, and I thought I'm going to try this because I want to have these. I think these would be super cool to have in an Iron Warriors force. I didn't expect the gun to be as good as it is. I was fully expecting it to be one dice because the Dreadhammer siege cannon, if you go to Age of Darkness, admittedly, this is the previous iteration of the game, version 2 of Horus Heresy. That cannon that's on the Typhon was virtually identical to the cannon that was on one of the on a Baneblade, I think it was. And I thought, okay, I can take the stats then from the Baneblade Demolisher cannon and put it on there. It wasn't Demolisher cannon, whatever. The Baneblade gun, put it on this, job done. But in Legions, they have now introduced a difference between those two, the two comparable weapons, where this is a 2 dice gun and the one I was comparing it with was a single dice. Makes a huge difference on a single model. If you've got 1 dice that's hitting on a 3+, yeah, I think maybe the other version of that, because it was solar, was on a 4+. 50% missing 50% of the time with the 1 dice thing. You're like, that's not ideal. Where 2 dice hitting on 3s with that potent cannon on that's pretty cool. So I think the Typhon's tasty, and it's not to be underestimated. 2 wounds on these models with a 2+ save. That makes them quite chunky.
The hull mounted. It's just a Demolisher cannon now on the Baneblade, rather than a Dread
I
Hammer.
was thinking, but I was thinking, I think the main gun the main battle cannon thingy, main cannon on a, I want to say on a, it's on the
cannon.
Baneblade variant. It's on the Baneblade variant. What's it called?
Oh, the Dread Hammer, isn't it? Is it a Dread
There it
Hammer?
is. Maybe it's not a Dreadhammer.
No, not a Dread Hammer. Stormblade. I can't remember for the life of me. Man looks things up.
Hellhammer. Hellhammer cannon,
Hellhammer is
I
the
think was it.
Hellhammer.
Now, when you
Sounds right.
compare the Hellhammer cannon with the Dreadhammer in Horus Heresy and Age of Darkness, they were statted the same.
Right.
They are not now.
Well,
in
I wonder
Legions.
if that's a specific design.
I could see it being the case. Yeah, I could see that
Yeah, they
being the case
wanted
to
to do. They
differentiate
don't.
it. The very least of which, hitting a 2-hit roll being different to represent Marine
They
crew
might not have
versus
wanted the
solar crew.
Hellhammer to be good at all of that. I
Yeah,
can't find where I was on the other one now. Typical. It's all good fun. Yes, because the points difference not a lot between the two. You're getting a lot of guns on that Baneblade.
yeah.
Hellhammer, should I say?
It's a different thing, as you say. It's
Yeah,
the Hellhammer is
absolutely.
Baneblade and Sokoa, they're little mobile fortresses, whereas these are siege guns or assault guns, that sort of thing. They play a very different role, particularly in this scale
Yes.
of game. But yeah, I thought the rules were quite good, and I think people are going to like them.
Right. It's Mastodon. How do you feel?
I was so hopeful that it was going to have the thing that you were talking about, the
Just
thing where it was
something to protect the
destroyed and
troops
allowed. Yeah,
inside.
exactly. If it was
Even if
destroyed,
it's
it
just a
remains as a
rule,
tunnel. Yeah,
or you get a save,
yeah,
or what have you. The siege melter array will be hilarious if someone brings their titans too close.
yeah.
But it's 6 inches. That's fine. You're not buying this for the siege melter array. You're buying it for its large assault transport 8, and it's 2 void shields.
Yeah,
Is it enough?
a ground-based Thunderhawk, which is quite interesting. With the large assault transport being the key words there. I mean, that carries all sorts of things. It's pricey. 130 points a piece is a lot. And then adding 3 of them, 350 points. I mean, but then you are able to transport a lot. The inbuilt Sky Reaper battery is handy. It's mobile marine anti-air
Mm,
is quite valuable. The Arcus arguably does something similar, but I mean, this being baked into a transport is quite appealing. They are chunky. 3 wounds
I
is pretty
yeah,
good.
and 2
2 plus so.
shields,
Yeah,
2
and
void
2
shields.
voids. Yeah, yeah.
What do you need special rules to be able to carry dreadnoughts?
Yes. You need the large part of the large
That's
assault
all it is.
transport role.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we can do that. So how big are dreadnoughts? And they're being
It's
carried.
is it scale? Basically, yes, you can definitely take
Trying to find
Leviathans and Contemptors. Oh, he says very confidently.
Leviathans as well. Cool.
Very confidently says that, but I'm pretty sure that's the
I'm just trying
case.
to get up to find the rules. Man scrolls through things because he doesn't have a book, which is much quicker to search through. Contemptors are Walker 1.
What's the Leviathan? Should be next to it in the thing.
Leviathans are Walker 1.
Yeah, so that's what does that.
So they take 1 space. So you can carry 8 Contemptors. That's interesting.
I think they might take up 2 spots
It might take up 2 spots. Okay, that's fair enough. 4
because I'm pretty
Contemptors
sure
sounds
you can
about
only
right.
put 4
Yeah, there used to
Contemptors
be
or 4
5
Leviathans
in.
in a
Yeah, it sounds about
Thunderhawk.
right. Cool. So you can have 3 of them for 350 points to deliver 8 dreadnoughts into the face of the enemy. Whether that's
2 of them. 2 of them will deliver 8
sorry, 12. Oh no, because
Yeah. So you
detachment
nearly
size.
need 250 points. You can deliver. You can have that thing rolling forward with its siege melter array, and you are quite like it's only moving 8 inches a turn. That's the only
Yeah.
downside. Although transports being what they are now, they can triple. You know, you can march these, albeit you lose you for shooting, but
Mm.
you could march these. That's suddenly quite good. Marching these
To
and
keep
putting
your
your
dreadnoughts
infantry,
safe.
yeah, and well, it also means your dreadnoughts are moving pretty quickly. Not as
Yeah.
quickly as a Thunderhawk, but this is a lot tankier than a Thunderhawk is.
Yeah. And then you can, if you're taking like Leviathans, you can get your Cyclonic Mental Lances out
Yeah.
where you need them to do the damage because their range is so short on Leviathans.
Mm.
Yeah, cool. Like, is it good? Don't know. Is it cool? Yep.
Certainly is. Yeah, yeah.
You know,
They've lent into it being tanky. That's for sure.
yeah, they need to, don't they? Really? Yeah. I don't really know where else to go. Those are the things that interested me. Was those 3 big ones, to be honest.
The Whirlwind is an interesting one
Yeah. Is it?
because it's the
Oh
first
yes.
artillery. So you got the difference between the Scorpius and the Whirlwind, and whether or not the Scorpius does a different role to the Arcus, given obviously there's similarity in their sort of look and style. The very fact that the Scorpius is an artillery spot rather than the battle tank that the Arcus takes up. So by comparison, the Arcus gun is helmet. No, Arcus missile launcher has 2 modes of fire, either a 16-inch 2 dice 4 plus -2, but has anti-tank and ripple fire. It's pretty good. And then the alternate firing mode, 20-inch range, 2 dice 5 plus, same -2, which is unusual in anti-air, anti-tank,
Mm.
skyfire, and tracking. Really good on the Arcus hull. Whereas the Scorpius is 18 inches, 2 dice 4 plus -2, barrage, and light AT. So you can fight they are artillery as opposed to the more direct fire of the Arcus. 18
Cool.
versus 16. So the range is similar, surprisingly. I would have thought there would have been a different one. I would have thought the Scorpius might have had a longer range. And it is only light AT. It's not anti-tank, which the direct fire of the Arcus is full on anti-tank. They're doing different roles, obviously, but the fact that you can
Yeah.
arc that around.
what they're
The
designed to do.
the whirlwind, however, is a much longer range thing, and clearly very anti. Well, I say
Infantry.
it's very anti-infantry. It's not as much as I expected. I was expecting the rocket missile itself to be light. It's not. It's
Right.
barrage, ignores cover, rapid fire.
That's the point, though. Is it ignores cover, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and the rapid fire is surprising. On 2
Yeah.
dice, 30-inch range. They're the tastier of the two, I would have said.
Yeah, different roles, isn't it? Slightly,
Mm, mm.
but the yeah, the anti-cover, no cover is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And makes again, like, there was, lots of people were sitting in. If the meta in your local area is to sit in buildings with loads of infantry, suddenly that's not as, or sit in terrain, whatever it is, it's not quite as straightforward now. You have some more tools to deal with that kind of thing,
Yeah.
which is,
Including the Vindicator, which was
yeah,
entirely predictable how that was going to look and operate.
yeah, absolutely.
Little sad to see that the Vindicator's close assault factor is 0. Bit of a shame, but the Demolisher cannon is quite effective, to say the least. 12-inch range, 1 dice, 4+ to hit, -3, Demolisher, ignore cover. Pretty handy, I'd say.
Absolutely. Cool.
Yeah, cool little release, I think. I know of which book is pretty. It's pretty good thing to have, I think.
It certainly makes it easier carrying this and the rule book.
Yeah.
As I say, the only thing I think, yeah, maybe soft covers, splitting them up, but I can see why they didn't. Because, how many Legion ones are you going to sell compared to everything else?
Mm.
Or Legion and, so how many Dark Mech books are you going to sell? You'd have to bundle them all into one anyway. So
Mm.
I kind of get it. But yeah, it's cool. It's on the list of things I need to get some more LI in. We got a guy at the club who seems to be pushing away from mainline GW games a little bit more.
Mm.
So hopefully we can get some games up and people can think, oh yeah, need to paint that.
Mm.
And we can go. I've got a. I haven't. I'm hoping to get some paint on these dudes fairly soon, but we shall see. We shall see.
I
You
thought
know,
it's not just the last thing to touch on is those iconic
sure.
formations.
Right. Yeah.
Where I think they give them quite a bit of design space. I It's tempting to say that these are just sort of thrown in because there's not, unlike these fitted so well in the campaign books. So, for
Mm,
example, having the Iron Warriors Macro Assault Wing or the Alpha Legion Harrow Group, those were really evocative. Having those in a campaign book where you saw how they were operating in the campaign, and then having the ability to have something kind of unique, or a formation of legend as it was there. Here, particularly the new ones, are just sort of, and here they are, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. You sort of wonder if these were the basis of something that was going to be in a, or could have been in a campaign book had they had time and resource.
right.
Instead, here they are in here. But I'm speculating wildly. Very cool to see Solar Auxilia have the range of various different patterns of sub cohorts, Solar,
Yeah.
Ultima, mechanized Chthonian headhunters get a specific call out one. Theta Garm and Deathless, super cool
Yeah.
to have those in there. So yeah, I those are quiet little introductions, but quite good ones, I think.
And I think the terminology and the generic ones, I think these are going to play into army theme more.
Mm.
You're going to be able to, like, there's, in heresy we've got the one per legion or maybe more for some legions, uh, that give you a real kind of traditional view of that legion,
Mm.
or an aspect of that legion, and they can increase that, and then these can be increased as well. And it feels, I don't know why it feels better that they're not. Maybe it's the hangover from AT when we had the Titans of Legend
Mm. Mm.
that always felt a bit off.
Mm.
I think the power scales were different. Also, it felt like you were playing with a named thing.
Yeah, it had the named
and,
character aspect to it, didn't it? Yeah.
and special characters feel a bit long and a little bit weird, and calling them. So what do they call them now? They call them
Iconic.
iconic formations. Yeah, iconic formations sounds a little bit. Formations of legend sound like a specific thing, like they were used at this point or what have you. And that's just semantics. Other people might not feel that. These feel like, oh, I don't mind taking that. There's a lot of options now, though.
Yes, there are.
Like
Yes.
writing your army list. This is the one thing, because Heresy 3 has changed and Age of Darkness 3rd edition's changed so much. Writing your army list becomes, you have to go right back to the beginning. And I'm trying to work out what I'm doing. And then because you've got the detachments coming in, and then because stuff unlocks them, I'm almost at the point of printing off the detachments and like laminating them or whatever, so I can write on them as I'm writing an army list.
Yeah.
Because there are various ways to do it, like write what you want, see how you fit it in, or pick a detachment, try and fit it out, or what have you. So you find yourself looking across stuff as you're building, trying to work it out. So it's a little bit different with this, but there's so many different detachments that you're going to need to, until you know them, you're going to be need to looking back. Oh, can I, I've got these in this. Oh, actually, I could pull them out of that one and put them in this one with this, combine those two bits and have, not need my expanded bits on this because I'm going to use them in here instead and get this benefit as well as this benefit. But then you also potentially come back to trying to remember what's in what detachment as being a
that
small
is a
issue.
thing. Yeah, that is a whole
So
thing in this game. Yeah, that's true.
without having like tokens everywhere, I don't know the answer on that one.
No, what tokens? I have seen people using white rubber bands, but these little things you can put on the
I'd
bases and
rather,
stuff, but it takes you out a little bit.
yeah, unless you're going to unless you've got enough money just to buy detachments and paint them as detachments,
Well, yeah.
which it
Zero
doesn't give you
flexibility.
many
People do
options.
it. Yeah, no,
Oh
quite.
yeah. I mean, if you're happy to play that way, but I'm much more of I want to be able to use this across my whole army any way I want,
Yeah,
rather
quite.
than
Yeah.
limit myself. So yes. Anything else before we wrap this up?
No, I think that's gone into plenty of depth on this. But yeah, I recommend. I'd be interested to see what people do with this.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to order it. That's for sure. See if some guys at the club want to group order it to save on postage.
And get some games in.
Yeah, definitely. Then get some games in. Need to work that. Need to get a table, a really good like terrain table sorted.
I am working on that as we speak. So
Are you?
I'll have to host you. I'm currently in the process of making up buildings that can be intact, ruined, and then
Oh
destroyed.
wow. You do have to host me actually. We have to organise that at some point.
We'll get that.
So
We'll get that to happen.
to make sure something happens, maybe I can bring Emma up and kids can play,
Oh,
and
oh!
women could talk and
What
boys
a
could do the serious thing.
There's something very wonderful,
Very
stereotypical
Victorian
about
about
that.
that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
retiring to
We
discuss
could
war.
reclaim the empire while we're at it. What could go wrong? Awesome. Okay, we'll leave that there. We'll come back for the next section.
Ideal.
So, mentioned at the start of the show that running an event. I am part of an event kind of WhatsApp group thing where a big discussion started a little while ago about terrain in third edition, and there were lots of different views on terrain and how good it is, how bad it is, what issues there are, what have you. And it kind of realized that through SN revealing their terrain rules for their events, which they're very public about. Pardo puts it out there. there are definitely people within the community who are very keen to have a one size fits all, everyone uses the same system for
Mm,
everything in the game. And this has always been the case. I'm not particularly in favour of that. I think that when people are really impassioned about like a way a game should be played, then if there are no events for them to attend, then you just lose them. Like
mm,
I'd
mm,
much rather have a spread of events, and if you don't like a style of event, you don't go, and someone else can. But also think there's an element of bad dice back in the day. The Warhammer Fantasy podcast. Um, Back in the day, they used to run their big event. They used to recommend, right? So they'd get people saying, I'm looking at going to an event. There's like 50, 60 a year, really good ones in the UK. What should I go to as my first event? You know, and they'd almost always say, try and go to a Games Workshop Warhammer World event. A, because it's what Warhammer World and it's a bit special. B, because they play closest to the book.
mm,
So you know what you're going to. Could be playing almost a completely different game.
mm,
Um, so I feel like I'm not saying it will happen, but you will lose some people by people looking at an event and going, but this isn't the game I play at home with my 5, 6 mates. Like,
mm,
what, I like the game we play, which
mm.
we play out of the rule book, as whether they do or not, but they think they do. Um, so I'm in favour of do different things, like when an FAQ needs to be written by the community because you're waiting for GW and someone says, I think this rule should be played that way, and you're adamant that they've missed like something and they're wrong, at your event, change it. Do it a
I
different
think
way.
with the increased number of events relative to perhaps how many were being run previously, there seems to be quite the choice now. There's actually quite a lot of events.
Mm,
People are trying that out, which would support the the approach that you're talking about there. Because if you don't like
yeah.
that, it's not like, oh, there's only 4 events in the year, and one
But it's
that's close to me
I'll be
is
honest
a
with you,
problem. Mm,
beyond the first couple of years of Heresy, that was never the case anyway. Um,
interesting. Okay.
like when I started running events, there weren't a huge amount, but within a year, I wasn't the first by any stretch. And my first event was essentially a tournament. The ones before that were definitely tournaments, or most of them. But then within a year of me running one, there were more appearing that were narrative around
Mm.
the country. Now, obviously, there's a lot more. Um,
One would assume there's even yeah, exactly that. There's given the growth of the game that
yeah.
one
So
would assume there are more events along with it.
I and I get there is a it's nice to not have to think, oh, how are these people playing this rule? Ideally, Games Workshop give us a rule set that doesn't really need approaching like that.
Or that
But
is the
again,
core of something that is then
yeah,
bolted onto or varied, but not wholesale replaced. But yeah.
yeah. But back in the day, we used to have all kinds of comp systems
Mm,
in Warhammer, and it added variety. I don't want to attend the same event every time. I don't want to see the same armies being put out every
mm,
time. I find it dull. So maybe it's just me, but I want to see people trying different things.
mm,
Um, comp Composition scores and something like that. I don't think I would ever do it, but I've been considering how that would work in a heresy environment because some people just really love, like, this is good, I'm going to bring 3 of them, and it would be nice in some ways to be able to say, cool, you can do that, however,
mm.
there's going
There
to be
are
a consequence
consequences.
for doing,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
you know in a way that's less work, basically,
Mm,
for
mm,
might be more work up front, but less work on that day, especially with only 4 games in an event. You've got less space to be able to play with stuff.
mm,
But after all that, so terrain. So essentially, there were discussions then happening once SN put this document out, and what's really interesting is the comments back from some people were like, "Hold on, how are you playing this terrain?"
mm,
And it appears that like not everyone's really appreciated the terrain rules in this edition, and I haven't fully. And things like edition bleed, which is where
Mm.
you've been playing stuff for so long that you just kind of read something and assume it works in a similar way. Something like that's kind of happened because terrain's really changed in this edition, and some people don't mind it. Some people really don't like it.
Mm.
But essentially, so I thought, why not just go back to the basics? How does terrain work in second edition, in third edition, even compared to second and third, and 40k and all the other game systems that there are?
Hmm.
And it's very kind of it's kind of clear. I think some people are getting caught up on. Again, I'm sure there are small issues that are less clear, but when you're talking about terrain, you are talking about we are completely abstracting terrain now. Like true line of
Mm.
sight is not a
Mm.
thing anymore. We are drawing lines across the battlefield from base to base, essentially. And if it goes over terrain, then the terrain either does have or doesn't have an effect, depending on what type of terrain it is. It's no. Oh, I'm going to get down to modelized view to try and see stuff. It's about what the lines are covering. A little bit like Kill Team, a little bit like 40k. It's simpler if you know what you're doing, I think, because you're only ever looking, or it's more straightforward to discuss that, put a laser line down from the top.
Mm.
Cool, it's gone over that bit of terrain. Cool. Now we look at that bit of terrain. What is it like? Rather than getting down line of sight, I can see a little bit of that. Is that covered? Is that not covered? Um, those kind of things. I don't know. Trying to remember exactly how it played out in 2 and 1. I mean, 1 was, it's never been completely straightforward. No game has. There's always been issues around terrain and line of sight and things
I
like that.
remember True Line of Sight when it was brought into 40k, because I remember it being discussed in sort of
Mm,
designers' notes. It was Alicio Cavatore, that era, I think, which would have been roughly about, because I'm tentatively thinking that was sixth or type of edition, which is where Heresy 1.0 kind of crept in. So I'm assuming
yeah.
True Line of Sight featured there, given that that was the engine that was powering Heresy at the time. Obviously, it's deviated since then considerably. True Line of Sight is typically how I've tended to treat things just in general in the games I'm playing, whether that's
Mm.
truly how the game is being played. But certainly, this is a good demonstration of where attempting to read the rule set afresh is valuable here and treating it that way rather than going, oh, I'm sure that's the same. Even if that's not, I don't think it's a conscious thing where you go, I'm sure that's the same. I won't bother treating it. But you just start merging, the concepts and even
And
just
when
the
you're
understanding of how it works.
yeah, when you're taking in a lot of new rules as well, your brain skips over certain things and you go, oh yeah, I know how that works. It's
Yeah,
fine.
quite. Yeah.
So
On
minus,
paper, if someone was putting that to me the way you described it, you sort of think, yeah, actually, I can see some of the appeal of that rather than a debate, which can introduce a conflict between you and your opponent. You sort of think where you've got differences of opinion. Obviously, there's easy ways of resolving that, but something that's a bit more straightforward about,
I
yeah,
think,
there's a line here. I kind of get the intent of that. Whether or not I like it, I don't know really.
sure,
But
I think combined with the terrain we actually have on the table,
mm,
it become like that. I don't know the decisions made by GW, but 40k has moved, into this. Um, it means your terrain doesn't have to necessarily be of a certain specific type, um, that kind of thing. You can play around with the terrain a bit more
mm,
and still have it work a different way. It's it's less storytelling than Line of Sight,
mm,
but
mm,
maybe more gamey
yeah.
in a more of a game style approach to
Mm,
rules than True Line of Sight. So And it's weird. It's hard to say that kind of like something's less or more story, because if you're
I
going in
agree.
going,
I agree with that because I agree with where you're coming from, but it
but it's not
feels
necessarily
like
true.
it's but yeah, and the way the way one phrases that is critical because it can sound like, oh well, okay, then it's gone completely down the games mechanic kind of thing. Well,
Yeah,
actually, it might be the intent there, which you get one gets too deep into
story
these things,
about
overthinks it, but it could be we've simplified this so that the rules get out of the way of the game being told, rather than being, well, what's the mechanic for that again? It's supposed to be narrative, but actually I'm working the mechanic more than I
yeah.
am because
Well,
it's such
I think
complex.
this is the
It's an interesting
biggest
game, though.
problem it's the biggest problem I have with third edition
Mm,
is mechanics and narrative. And there are things that some people say are very narrative, and I'm like, but I think it's a mechanical thing. But you can read it both ways. So we'll get into it. But like medium terrain, if there's 3 inches of medium terrain between you and the target, you can't see the target. And people are like, well, how does that work if I've got this? And it's like, well, because they're hiding behind stuff. They've got enough
mm,
terrain there to hide behind. Cool. That's a narrative reason that that works. But was that rule put in there for that narrative reason, or was it because having a single window in a piece of terrain meant you could snipe a battle cannon shot
mm,
through
mm.
it into someone at the back, which is the other side of things that you could do in old editions. Oh, they might get a cover save, but still, should you really be able to snipe a battle cannon shot through that window? So,
Funnily
yeah,
enough, I remember that
nothing.
being the thing in the event that you and I went to, the
Yeah,
doubles thing, where we ended up firing. I was firing bloody Vanquisher cannons through this ruin into a Leviathan, and it's like this is starting to feel a bit weird. It doesn't feel quite right. Now, in reality, you think, well, reality, whatever, you'd be like,
yeah,
I've got a tank round. It's going to go through that house and
exactly.
hit the thing on the other side. So the fact there's cover there is is a lesser thing. Same as we've all played. We've all played various video games where you're like, yep, what is it? Counter Strike, no problem. I'm just going to fire. I think someone's behind there. I'm going to put all these
Yeah,
bullets through that wall. I'm going to hit the thing on the other
Counter
side.
Strike, showing your age. Um,
It's got to you got to have the references for the kids.
but
But the
yeah,
there's a point to that, but as you say, abstracting it is the kind of fair.
this is what I mean. It works both ways. So
Yeah, yeah.
medium terrain. I'm talking about, oh well, this and this. It's like, well, yeah, or not, having terrain where it's all blocked off, but you can still see into it because that's the way the terrain rules work, rather than true line of sight. Well, as you say, well, it's a STC built
Mm.
prefab building. Like, is it really going to stop a las cannon shot? No. Is it even going to stop a bolt shot? Probably not. You know, so it can work both ways. I think almost the way you approach it might influence your decision
Mm.
on it. So line of sight, page 185, very short section of the book. Blah 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 blah. To determine line of sight, use a tape measure or other device. If an unbroken straight line can be drawn between the first model and its target. If a piece of terrain model with a vehicle type or other obstruction breaks the line between these two models, there is no line of sight. So a piece of terrain model with a vehicle type or other obstruction breaks. If the lines are unobstructed, the models have line of sight to each other. Area terrain only obstructs line of sight if the line passes through more than 3 inches of area terrain, except for heavy terrain, which always blocks line of sight, and light area terrain, which never blocks line of sight. Models do not have the vehicle type, do not obstruct, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm not worry about the rest of that. That's the essence of it. Can I draw a line from this model to that model? And I've seen people saying, "Oh, well, what part?" And I think any line. It's
Well, I
if
think,
it's a
but I
line
think
from that
that's a
model to that
reasonable
model,
question. I think that's a
it
reasonable
is.
question because my
But
mind is immediately thinking: is that a 2D line on the surface of the table, or is that a 3D line? Is my Saturnine Dreadnought looking over a wall at you? I've got line of sight to it. Is it?
um,
I don't know.
no, it'll be a 2D if that, because if it's a 3D line and passes over a piece of terrain,
But there you go. But so
then you've passed over a piece of terrain. It's a
but then
2D line.
this is the difference. Then therefore, this is the difference. So
But
the
that
rules
bit's
as written
quite
is a
clear, I think.
2D thing. Yeah, it's clear, but is it preferable? Because that's an interesting question. Same as something being elevated. You've got some guys who are elevated looking over something, and there's stuff clearly on the other side of it, so they couldn't be hiding in it.
That's a
That's a
different.
3D line. But I'm starting to make a more niche example there. But yeah.
Yeah, elevation is something. I'm not 100% sure how that's covered in here. Actually, I would have to go
No.
and have a look. That's something I
Me
didn't look
neither.
up.
Me neither. No.
But um, but this is quite straightforward. I mean, this suggests that it doesn't matter how tall you are.
Quite.
So it would suggest that elevation doesn't matter. If you go over a piece of terrain, it is infinitely high. You know, that's very straightforward. Well, no, that's very. I think it's fairly simply put, and reads to me to be fairly straightforward. I would suggest a line between two models is any line between two models. I would say that I think they might be addressing some of this because there's been a lot of discussion about what these things actually mean, and I think it would help if you had that, like a proper, okay, this is how, we'll break it down a little bit as like we'll have an article on Warcom that talks through line of sight as if it's a person talking to you rather than reading the book could be a really useful way to divulge that information and get it cleared up. I think that's what I mean. What could be even better is to have a game on Warhammer TV and they highlight aspects of shooting through terrain and they show you what they think a table of 2,000 point games should have on it in terms of terrain. Because
Yes.
how many pieces of heavy terrain do they expect you to use on the table? The answer is not that many, and not that big. So, yeah, I think that aspect could be they could really utilize Warcom to aid that. So
I thought
that's
a good example of that was that that building your Saturnine article they did that expanded upon and arguably superseded the instructions that were in the
yeah.
kit for that. Now you could argue a modelling article is one thing and an army, but then you could have it
No,
as a permanent downloadable article as a PDF. Just an explanation or a
oh,
designer's notes kind of thing on that would be quite an interesting article, quite an interesting thing to exist.
live update as we
Mm.
record. I've actually had an email from GW to say that the Traitor Champion console is now in stock. And I must have hit that eBay button. I hit that remind me button. I don't know how many months ago. I was at Adepticon looking for this model.
Wow.
Um, so I am currently buying it online. I will have
Love
it
that. I
delivered
love
to
that
the
this is happening
store.
live.
This is happening live. I was like, I've
Real
got an
time
email from you.
purchase.
I will find the money for it. Do you want to buy any silver now,
Live on camera.
live on
He
camera.
is
So anyone wants to buy
flogging
some
off his
silver
stuff.
now? There we go, purchased. I have a large silver enough army for sale. Anyway, so yeah, but I think Warcom is a brilliant place to do it, and yet also not a great place to do it. Should
Mm.
be then available to download or saved somewhere. But if it's a video, they could put it on YouTube as well. One plus YouTube, somewhere that is accessible. The problem is not everyone looks at Warcom all the time, but it would get out there, and they could have if they did a written one, they could definitely have it as a download, like
Yeah.
designer's notes for terrain in the download section. So we got line of sight, unless it's a terrain or a terrain or a vehicle block line of sight, pretty much nothing else does. No sweat. All good. There is terrain levels here. I haven't looked through that yet. But that's mainly around blast attacks, only hitting uppermost levels, what have you. Cool. There are terrain types. So here's a game design aspect that is coming in, which has been used in other game systems. Open terrain. Cool. No effect. Brilliant. Terrain pieces. Terrain pieces block line of sight. Now, doesn't really say what they are, but these are your things like statues, like, I don't know, you name it, like whatever it is. A terrain piece can be anything you want it to be that blocks line of sight. It could be a cliff edge, it could be I don't know, a building that like is inaccessible. Could be a crashed Thunderhawk, right? Whatever you want it to be, because the beauty is you choose what your terrain is. But terrain pieces block line of sight. You can walk over them potentially. Um, yeah, and then they could have additional special rules. But if you want to block line of sight, which is an important thing to do in a game where there are lots of guns, then you could have some terrain pieces. Then you've got area terrain, 3 types: light, medium, heavy. They offer a cover save, 6+ for light, 5+ for medium, 4+ for heavy. So if you are within that zone, you gain that save. Then you've got, and then we know from earlier, light terrain doesn't block any line of sight. Medium area terrain blocks line of sight if 3 inches of medium terrain is between the 2 units. Heavy blocks all line of sight. So where we have an issue is heavy units hiding in heavy terrain and not being able to interact with them. But I haven't played the game enough for that to be me to have that much of an issue with that yet, because what are you denoting as a heavy terrain? Where is it on the table? How big is it? Because also a unit in heavy terrain can't do anything unless you've got something which is going to blind fire. You can fit a Scorpius in it, but then don't do that. Like, don't allow a terrain piece to have that kind of thing in there. The problem I've seen is an assault army runs up, Army A charges, Army B uses movement reactions to either move into heavy terrain so it can't be charged, or to move from 2 inches of medium terrain. Even seen people say a unit runs into touching medium terrain so they can see into it 3 inches. Unit B moves back and is now no longer chargeable because it's out of line of sight. Then in their own turn, they step forwards again and open fire. Legitimate. If that tactic is something that's able to do, there's a feels bad about that. And I can see where an issue occurs. However, even a 10-man tactical squad has a footprint. 3 inches, I wonder if, and I think I've seen people saying if you're over 3 inches away and in terrain, then it becomes an issue. But it's got to be 3 inches of that terrain.
Right.
So take a square ruin that's even 5 inches by 5 inches. If you move into that terrain, they've got to be 3 inches away from you to not be seen.
Right.
Can you fit all 10 in without having people around the side? If you can imagine, like, you've got a square building. If you move everyone into the edge of that square building, so that they're within the confine, within the width of that building, anything 3 inches further back is invisible. However, if you move up and you've got models to the side of that square building, their 3 inches of terrain is a much different value.
Okay.
So you're pushing where you can see back further and further. So, like, how often, there might be cases where it can happen for sure. How often can you truly get a unit out of line of sight of a charging unit? And before anyone says, well, you can do it because of this, but also out of line of sight of them being shot at by something else. Because it's a valid tactic to run away from people and avoid charges. You can do that just if they move you in the open. You can move out of their charge distance. But if you then can't be shot at, I get it. Maybe it's like a bit, I've got to manage this. But essentially, you've got that 5x5. You move up to you're touching it with a few models wider of the building and tanks that can move that have created angles, like, or just units angles, because you've got a 6 foot wide table,
Mm.
even 4 foot wide if you're playing up the other end. For that unit to not be able to be seen by anything else is like either really well played or really unlucky, or they're right on the edge of the board and maybe not playing into something. So
Mm.
I'm not. I don't dismiss the potential issue. I'm I wonder how much of a major issue it is. I'm
Mm.
sure it could happen, but it feels to me like it's not going to happen anywhere near as much as is thought of.
I suppose perhaps the fear of it, or the thought of it being registering in the mind is not ideal. But as you said, I sort of agree based on this sort of the way we're talking about it and looking at it and picking it apart now, particularly given the strength of feeling. I would say that is fairly clearly, anecdotally, as it would have to be, the most complained about thing.
Mm,
Now that the sort of the whole what units are available and what unit options are available thing sort of wound down, but uh, we discussed that last time. But
mm,
the terrain rules seem to be quite consistently. People were either wary of them or openly hostile towards them, and including quite
yes.
measured reviews. I thought of the whole
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
which I thought was interesting that that's the case. So it's a thing. It's registered in people's mind, regardless of whether it is as much of an issue as it might first seem.
So then you got, yeah. So on top of this, we got dangerous terrain and difficult terrain, which affects movement like -2 inches or mine saves. We're not really going to talk about that too much. That's, um, dangerous terrain and difficult terrain are cool. And yeah, put some in your tables, but it's less of an effect. People aren't talking about that much as anywhere near as much. What people are saying is this medium terrain rule is blocking off tables, like units can hide far too easily, and the heavy terrain as well. I've heard like, yeah, you should be using a couple of pieces of heavy terrain maximum, and you know what? Maybe don't use any on certain tables.
Mm.
But the medium terrain thing, people are kind of so against. The one thing with heavy terrain is two units can be within a piece of terrain 1 inch away from each other and not be able to interact. And I could see there being some janky, weird stuff there where you could like half encircle a unit and it can't do
Mm.
anything to you. But does it bother me that a combat unit can move into it and then move out of it in charge? Not really, because you could do that from behind a wall like
Mm. Mm.
before. Same with shooting. They can still be targeted by weapons that don't require line of sight, so you can still do that. I'd have to play more. I'm, you know. But the answer that was so SM put out this thing. The answer I've seen a lot of people is, well, we don't play the obscuring rules through the terrain. It's like, okay, cool. So what is there to protect your army? Because nothing's going to block line of sight unless all of a sudden you're putting down, unless you're playing true line of sight, in which case you're changing everything.
Mm.
But even then, as you saw when you came down to Eastbourne, actually I don't think Eastbourne was as bad as some other events, as light on terrain as some other events, should I say? Bad's the wrong word. Um, but it's hard to get terrain for all these tables for events. Absolutely. You know who's one of the worst? Warhammer World. Flipping no
Yeah.
terrain half the time on Warhammer World. So it's not an attack on. I only pick an Eastbourne because you came to it, but there are plenty of other events where I've gone to where I thought, terrain's a bit light. So SN have come up. That SN have kind of led this charge. They put their name out there, so that's why we're using them. But other people have echoed or gone further, go further, things like that. So light terrain and medium terrain give you a cover save. That's it. Heavy terrain, if a unit is in it, they can see through it, but they can't see into it unless you're in it.
Mm.
So, okay. And then they've come up with a new thing, which is a new idea from some other people, like barricades or scatter terrain, giving you a 6 up cover save. Like if you draw a line of sight across it. But to me, you need for this to work, because essentially you're then, okay, stuff's got cover saves, but a 5-up cover save is nothing really.
Mm.
You're getting your armor save most of the time, a lot of the time. You have to, for this to happen, you have to have dedicated terrain which blocks line of sight. Because this game is already very deadly. Like people are talking about 4 turns, everything's dead. And I wonder how much of that, don't get me wrong, I've had 4 turns, a lot of stuff dead anyway, but is that a problem that's made even worse by the fact that people aren't using any actual terrain?
Mm.
Because it's crazy. And yes, assault armies are quick, and there is an advantage in this edition with 4 turns, with the point scoring to being on objectives, grabbing them, holding them. But I played a friend, and we played the terrain rules slightly wrong. But my Kratos drove up to his Kratos turn 2 and took it off the table, and it was like, he's like, well, it's supposed to be really resilient, 10 wounds. And it's like, well, had he been able to hide it better, then maybe it wouldn't have had those issues. But he was very like, oh, stuff's just dying everywhere. And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, that is partly the game, but also we're going to have to use the terrain is you're going to be your medium terrain, particularly. It's going to give you a bit of help in that respect. I mean,
It's a
he had a,
really difficult thing. I mean, even just talking about it here, posing it as like a design challenge, if you like. I'm slightly influenced here, but I've listened to quite a few podcasts recently. There's a few podcasts came out. One particularly I enjoyed was with Jervis Johnson and Andy Chambers talking about
is that film
their
deck?
possibly it
No,
was the one
oh,
where they were
no, yeah,
talking about Epic. They were talking about the development of Epic, the Epic game system from right through from its original origins and the design challenges it kind of poses when you're doing these things. And terrain is a killer for that because it is so difficult to determine that to say, well, because as you say, do you introduce rules that makes terrain significant to the point where it is preventing you, or rather, it's providing you significant opportunities to increase the survivability of your units? And do you have to assume that people are going to have quite a lot of terrain, or do you allow it so that the rules allow it to make models more survivable, or do you do it in such a way where it doesn't really get in the way? That is a tricky balancing thing, and it's sort of immediately I want to have more data from people to be able to get that to work, and you sort of think, yeah, I want to be able to work out what people's experiences are,
yeah,
but I mean that's the definition of playtesting, obviously, but that's hard, I think, and have they hit that point? I'm not sure. It's interesting that the biggest complaint seemed to be that it was taking people out of it. They were sort of finding it, like you say, sort of this idea, this slightly gamey or janky way of these
well,
interactions that are a bit odd. That, as you say, you can sort of define a narrative behind any of it, but that doesn't really help.
you can, but people aren't playing it that way. That's
No,
the other
no.
thing. Like, how would you play narratively? The question we've asked for I don't know how many things, how many different episodes. It feels like now, with the game style changing once again from second and maybe a different style of people involved, that there's even more acceptance of, well, I could just do this. It's like
Mm,
you could, yeah, but I also just want to have a fun game,
mm,
like
mm.
that kind of thing. Where, yeah, I just,
Which you
if
see,
you're,
we just touched on this, I think, last time, didn't we? But you do see that more in evidence in things like Necromunda,
mm,
where there are plenty of things you can do, but it sort of self-polices because it's almost so open. Where
I
this is
also,
more codified,
yeah,
it's
I
harder
also
to
think
define that.
the vast majority of even stories about Necromunda games are amongst a group of friends who are playing a campaign.
Mm,
So therefore, they are invested. They play a certain way. Have had that discussion to play a
mm,
certain way, and it's much more difficult. Even going to a narrative event, it's much more difficult to say to someone, just don't do it.
mm,
Like,
mm,
if it feels bad, don't do it. Or what, why? And that person go, well, I'm trying to win the game as well.
mm.
Um, fair enough. Like, what's the right answer? I don't know. to the and all this to the point that when I'm running my event, I've been very careful not to call it a narrative event because
Mm.
at the moment I don't know if I want to because you open yourself up then. Oh, it wasn't very narrative. Like, okay, cool. How much control do I have over that? But
Mm.
also, new game system, let people play, that kind of thing. But
Mm.
I look at SN's table here that they've put up as their top-down view, and you if you've got something that's hard-hitting but not particularly durable, where do you hide it? You've
Mm.
got to bring a Spartan to put the Spartan down so you can hide it behind the Spartan because there's very little terrain on there that will protect you.
Mm.
So you are going to get people driving tanks up and putting them, sideways at the front and hiding things behind them, which again is not necessarily not narrative, but
Mm.
it will become the way to do things to create your own terrain as you play
Mm.
through. But also, people will be judging, if I've got 3 turns of shooting, can I keep in the scoring enough? Especially if I've got something like Tartarus Siege Terminators who have Vanguard and autocannons, so I
Mm.
can shoot you off your objective rather than having to go and get it, um, and then make a rush for it once I've killed everyone because guess what? You couldn't hide anything.
Mm.
You know, I'm looking at one of the Giles who plays regularly with me. He's talking about an army which has got Cenobium, like 2 units of Cenobium, 2 Land Raiders, 2 Kratos. It's you know, quite a strong build in terms of it's not messing around,
Mm.
and 4 units of tax to hold objectives. And I'm like, okay, yeah, it's just quite a tough build. Can I, what, I'm gonna have to put enough in my army so that I can kill some tanks and a little bit of redundancy, or if we're playing on a table like that, do I just take enough guns to kill 40 attack marines
Mm.
because you
Mm.
can't hide them anywhere?
Yeah.
So I will do that, and then you can't, you will really struggle to win the game. So I don't know fully what the answer is. I feel like you. I don't feel there's enough data yet. I
No.
don't think. I also think that certain people are always inclined to change the game no matter what. There's a certain drive or a certain mindset that wants the game to be slightly theirs.
Sort of the tinkerer mindset.
Yep, that could be one of them. I think there's probably a few different mindsets potentially, but the Tinkerer would definitely suffice in that because I can see quite a few events using this SN,
Mm.
and I'm not sure that's the best way to do it.
Mm.
And I could be completely. Let's hold my hands up here, right? This is theoretical, and what makes it more tricky is people will build armies based on this as well.
Mm.
So it will be a bit different. Um, Even if we didn't use this and we use GW's book for the rules as they are, do we then still need to look at some stuff? Maybe. I'm not saying that that SDS have written a perfect line of sight and terrain system. I'm not saying that. I don't believe, I think potentially there are more questions with with the way people are talking about running terrain than there are through the book.
Mm.
And
Okay.
as I say, in the long term, I might be proved wrong. I like the idea of like barricades, obstacles. I think that's a good idea. I think people have, whoever brought that up. But also, I think a lot of it must be dictated by the terrain available.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it.
what do GW sell? What do people have on tables? Like I think there was a little bit of Mickey taking around the idea of having woods on a board and
Mm.
them being usable. There's more than just light terrain. Or no, even as light terrain, I think it was a little bit of a laugh. But it's quite interesting because it's like weird journey for this one. But quite a few heresy players will talk about second edition. We'll talk about the old days, and heresy feels more like da 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 da. And you had things like Centurion, which played more like second edition and that kind of thing. But you used to see boards with a mix of buildings and trees and stuff like that. And why would a GW forest of those three trees? It's not three trees on the thing. It's a representation of a forest. So why couldn't you hide some stuff in, like, go and look in a deep forest and like a proper forest and get 10 people to go and hide 10 foot into it, 20 foot in, and actual make an effort to hide, and you won't see them, like, if they're any good. So it allows you to bring more types of terrain rather than just the same. It potentially allows you to do. It allows you to use all the terrain you've got as well, no matter kind of how useful it is. At the moment at the club, we've got a load of terrain where, in 40k currently, there's just a blanket rule that all base level buildings are blocked off, even if they've got windows. You can't see through them. Well, this terrain rule ignores that. Cool, you can have all the windows in the world, but you can only see 3 inches into it or through it if you're medium terrain. So you can use any terrain piece. Cool. You might want to be identifying what terrain pieces are what, like maybe markers, maybe something else. If you are, if you've got a bit down there till you're used to it, might be worth having a little thing you can put down. But yeah, terrain. It's an interesting one.
It is, yeah.
And I'm not sure, and I don't think there's ever going to be, like, there's always going to be sides on this, no matter how far through this edition we get. There's always going to be sides. But
yeah, it's interesting. It's become such a topic of this edition, particularly. And as you say, as you say, the SN thing, I think it's cool that they put that out. Their production values are high. I'd imagine they'll be just one of several that are going to do something like this. It'd be interesting to see how that coalesces. I wouldn't have expected terrain to be the first one out like this. I think perhaps because I was more led by what was happening with the units. I thought things like the panoptica and things like that were gonna be significant because they would be picking up where certain units or unit options didn't exist. But that seems to have been dealt with in a mostly comprehensive way. So I thought that would be the sort of conversation we're having. I wasn't expecting it to be terrain. And out the gate, that seems to be, out the gate in these early phases, that seems to be a big topic. So it'd be interesting to see what direction it goes to.
Yeah. I kind of hope people are open to just playing it out of the book for a bit, and maybe they have, and maybe people still don't like it, and fair enough. At the end of the day, SN are going to run this at their events. I'm probably not going to go to an SN event. I haven't got if I had that cash, I would be using it for something else. Nothing against them in that respect. Pardo is good people. Whatever he thinks everyone else should be doing, he's a good guy, and I'm not a fan of this. It doesn't help me want to go to the events. Would I still have fun at the event? Probably, but the game in itself, I would, maybe less enjoy. I'm leaning towards just playing it out of the book, playing it properly as well out of the book, not playing it how people think they should be playing it. But and rolling with that, and then seeing if these issues do then occur, then seeing a way to handle that, and whether that's the type of terrain you have, or whether that's the size of the terrain you have, or if you actually need to apply a new rule in there to do something like that. Because there is a case of things like, if I want to change up the way, if I want to run a mission where objectives aren't the primary, sacrilege maybe in this edition with people having to take stuff, but I've got targets that you need to kill, then you don't want them hiding them in heavy terrain for the whole game where you have to hope that you've got some models that can shoot them. You don't, that's not what you want to end up doing. There was some suggestions about utilizing intelligence as a skill to be able to allow you to notice units that are outside of line of sight to charge, which is an interesting idea that plays into the new rules that we have. Again, whether that actually works, whether that just shifts things skews things in a different way. Again, I don't know. Lots of options, lots to talk about, but I thought it was worth highlighting that terrain is very different in third edition and is different than you might see being used at events or some events.
Mm.
And you're not wrong if you're thinking, I'm sure terrain doesn't work like that. Then in your case, it might not work like that.
Mm.
So cool, crack on. But I definitely want to use the book to start with.
Definitely. It's got to be the starting point, hasn't it?
Well, I think so. I mean, sometimes you can read a book and you can see issues jump out and you can think, oh, that needs looking at. We haven't had an FAQ yet for this book. I think there's going to be a few things in there that clean a few things up and maybe change a few little bits and pieces. Terminology doesn't help either because you've got terrain types. Well, one of them is a terrain piece. It's like, well, okay. So when there was a whole thing about people saying, well, terrain pieces, and everyone's like, well, no. It's like, well, not everyone, but a few people were like, no. It's like, no, terrain pieces are specific terminology used in the book. So, yeah, I don't know. If you've got any questions, if you've got any feedback, if you've got any suggestions around terrain, then I reckon you should fire them in because, and if you're going to tell me I'm wrong, you're talking rubbish, well, maybe we'll look back on it in a period of time. You're quite entitled to that opinion. Absolutely. But I wonder why you're here because you probably think I'm wrong and talking rubbish about a lot of stuff. But I think it's definitely worth considering for your games. For sure. Awesome.
Lovely. Yeah, I would like to pick that up again.
Yeah, okay.
I think we should pick up on that again once we've played some more games, once we've heard from other people, and once this conversation has moved on. I think this would be worth a revisit. And equally, it's fairly clear. I think in the designer notes, somewhere I've seen it said, and maybe it was speculative, but that these terrain rules are almost deliberately or sort of quite appear to be light, specifically with the view to adding to them later. These becoming the sort of core module of something that is modular. So it'd be
That
interesting
is
to revisit
correct.
this as something else happening's coming on. Is that
Someone
speculative?
said something and said, well, we haven't got all the terrain rules yet. So yeah, that is looking, moving forwards. It will change and adapt. But yeah, okay, make a note because I probably won't. That we need to revisit this. I'm thinking that taking a segment like this of the book and having a little look at it might be a good thing for us to do as a podcast moving forwards. Again, let me know if, I don't know, we do the challenge phase, we do the whatever it is that we go through, that we pick out an aspect of the book, vehicles, and we look at specifically into some issues or things you can do within that kind of refined, quite tight. Terrain's quite a tight thing. Line of sight and terrain's quite a tight thing. So maybe we'll do that. But again, let us know. Right, let's take a break there. You've made it to the end of another episode of the Imperial Truth Podcast. Thank you for listening. Couple of sound issues in there. I dropped out a couple of times and I don't know why, but I will try and keep an eye on that for next time. But hopefully the rest of it was okay. I thought we lost the news section, but managed to find it again, which is a nice relief. Please let us know if you enjoyed the terrain section, if you've got ideas for things we can do like that going forwards, or any other ideas, any topics, any questions, particularly about third, I suppose, but anything else as well. Please feel free to fire them in, Greg at theimperialtruth.com. You can find us on the socials, imperial_truth on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. at Child of Fang. Also is my personal one on Twitter and Instagram as well. And you can find the show if you just put the Imperial Truth into Facebook, and all those are linked in our link tree as well as the link to Elements Games affiliate link, the merch.warhammer store, Battle Bling, and Patreon if you're so inclined to do that, and anything else basically. Going to sit down with how we're going to try and work on ideas for those topics, things like that. We have a couple of things like ready to go, a couple of shifts maybe within that environment of the show, of the topics, things like that. We're going to try and get that nailed down, and fingers crossed you might start to see some slight differences with the show going forwards. I think who knows? Who knows? I haven't booked any events. We talked about it in the show. I haven't booked any events up for the foreseeable, frankly. But I see Greetings from the Warp have put their tickets up for their doubles, selling very well. If you've gone to an event and something's happened, or there was specific instances of rules issues, queries, or aspects of the game that kind of stuck with you for good or ill, then I think it would be cool to hear from you about that, actually, to broaden the horizons of where I'm getting information from. It can be very easy in a specific Discord for that to become a homogenous arena of feedback. So you very quickly get stuck into a certain way of doing things. I'm keen to have a little bit more scope in what I'm hearing, which isn't always easy when you want to avoid certain parts of the internet or that jazz. Anyway, I think that'll probably do us for this episode. So until next time, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.